In front of a mirror, Mizuki cuts her long hair, snipping it away into a short auburn bob, while her friend Julia sits on her bed, asking if she's going to be okay. Julia admits that she is surprised by the news of Mizuki leaving. Julia tells her how worried she is over Mizuki's decision because they have always lived together in America. Mizuki tells her that it was difficult convincing her parents that this is the best decision for her. Despite her initial concern over Mizuki's decision, Julia cheers Mizuki on, saying the guy Mizuki likes, whom Mizuki considers her star, is one lucky person to be receiving this level of dedication, especially since Mizuki is transferring to the same school just to meet him. However, when Julia comments on how she finds it odd that Mizuki is cutting her hair short, Mizuki only flashes a suspicious and nervous smile. Starting her first day of school at Osaka Private High School for Boys, Mizuki dashes through the streets since she is already running late for her first class. Turning a corner in the school corridor, she unexpectedly bumps into Izumi and drops her bag in the process. Izumi helps her, but notices that Mizuki looks like a girl. Thinking that her cover is blown right away, Mizuki leaves hastily, forgetting her school bag in the process. Mizuki opens the door to Class 1C and immediately begins apologizing for her tardiness, explaining that her flight was delayed. The teacher dismisses her worries and turns to the class to introduce Mizuki. He tells them that Mizuki is a transfer student from America, which immediately captures the attention of the class since they did not expect Mizuki to come from a foreign land. Izumi then lightly places Mizuki's forgotten bag on top of her head. Mizuki turns to see him, instantly recognizing him as Izumi, the very reason she transferred schools. She's been a fan of Izumi for his jumps. Izumi takes his seat in class as many tease him over his tardiness. Mizuki stares after him, a warmth creeping up her chest since Izumi is right in front of her. During a free period, Mizuki looks around, taking note that she really is in an all-boys school. She worries about her situation for a bit, but is ultimately happy because she is classmates with Izumi. In her head, she thanks God and her luck for being blessed with her current situation. Wasting no time, Mizuki approaches Izumi, saying she likes him and asking if they can be friends. The class, hearing this, erupts into another state of chaos. Mizuki wonders if she said anything weird to cause such an uproar. Izumi stands up to leave, saying he's not into that, since he took Mizuki's statement as a confession. Without hearing the rest of her statement, Izumi proceeds to leave the classroom. Mizuki begins to panic in her head. She did not expect her first day to turn out this bad. Still, she manages to convince herself that it isn't the end of the world and that she can still turn this situation around since she came all the way from America to befriend Izumi. She begins laughing to herself, causing others to find her strange. Finding her a funny guy, Shuichi approaches her and compliments her guts for confessing on her first day. Mizuki clears up her intention, but now worries that Izumi might hate her. Shuichi dismisses her fears, saying that Izumi is simply sulking today. Shuichi introduces himself as a first year and a forward on the soccer team. He speaks in slang, which Mizuki finds hard to understand. When she tries to greet him in a similar manner, Shuichi smacks Mizuki's back for being overly awkward. After class, a teacher rushes into their classroom and asks if anyone can show Mizuki around. Shuichi is the one who ends up showing her the campus, mentioning that it isn't a burden because they both belong to the sports dorm. He shares that he got into the school through a sports scholarship, and Mizuki shares that she does a little track but did not get in through a scholarship. Since Mizuki lived abroad, Shuichi inadvertently asks Mizuki about her body count. Mizuki, with her vague response, hints that she hasn't done the deed yet. Shuichi then talks about men's private parts, which earns him a kick on the head from Hokuto, the school doctor. After some banter between the two, Hokuto notices that Mizuki is a new face. When he learns that she is the transfer student from America, he regards her curiously before introducing himself and telling her to see him in the clinic if she needs anything. Arriving at their dorm, Mizuki learns that she is sharing a room with Izumi. Shuichi explains that Izumi's foul mood is because Izumi now has to share a room with Mizuki when he used to have it all to himself. Mizuki admits that she thought they would have single rooms, while Shuichi admits that he also expected the same thing when he first arrived at the school. Taiki, Shuichi's roommate, says that Mizuki will eventually get used to her living situation. His sudden presence shocks them since they did not notice him. Taiki's gaze lingers on Mizuki before leaving. Continuing the tour, Shuichi tells Mizuki to come to him for anything. While going down the corridor, a dog named Yujiro jumps on Mizuki. Mizuki is shocked at how friendly Yujiro is but doesn't resist his affection. When the owner finally calms Yujiro down and takes his leave, Shuichi mentions that Yujiro is only friendly with girls. Mizuki panics for a bit, especially when Shuichi tells her that he would believe her if she suddenly turned out to be a girl due to how feminine her face is. He playfully pats her bound chest, saying that Yujiro must have just been mistaken since he's only a dog, and jokes about how Mizuki suddenly having boobs would be funny. As Shuichi leaves, Mizuki feels a mix of relief and disappointment over Shuichi's comment about her chest. Arriving at her room, she finds Izumi already there. Mizuki restarts her introduction, saying that she truly wants to be his friend. She shares that she has looked up to him as a high jumper for so long. Izumi realizes that's how Mizuki learned his name. Mizuki wonders out loud why he was enrolled as a regular student when he is an athlete. Maintaining his neutral expression, Izumi reveals that he quit the sport. Mizuki grabs him by his shirt in shock, asking him for an explanation. But Izumi simply tells her to let him go since he doesn't owe anyone an answer. Realizing she is invading his space, Mizuki releases her hold, allowing Izumi to exit their room. Mizuki finishes stowing away her belongings and realizes it's been a while since Izumi left. She decides to look for him, but opens the door to see Minami about to knock. He introduces himself and explains that he is here to explain the dorm rules. He then leans in and admits that he finds Mizuki adorable. Minami motions for her to follow him. While listening to Minami explain the rules, Mizuki bumps into Senri, who swears he will not let Mizuki take the school title of school idol from him. Mizuki is confused until Minami points out posters of them and students voting on who the school idol is. Much to her horror, Mizuki spots Wataru selling photos of her. Minami warns him to refrain from taking pictures because it violates people's privacy. Sensing her unease, Minami reassures her that the boys don't mean any harm. Shuichi sees Mizuki and invites her to dinner. As Minami leaves, Shuichi warns Mizuki about him, saying that she could easily get pregnant talking to him. Minami overhears this and murmurs to himself that he isn't into guys. As they head for dinner, Mizuki sees Izumi outside and tells Shuichi that he can go on without her. She goes to Izumi and notices that he is dozing under a tree. The dog Yujiro brings Mizuki a tennis ball. Humoring the dog, she throws it as she takes a seat beside the sleeping Izumi. She edges closer and pokes his right cheek, whispering that she really did love seeing him do the high jump. Izumi suddenly starts to fall, but Mizuki manages to stop him from falling on his face. Instead, he ends up dozing on her shoulder. She blushes at how close they are, and Yujiro, wanting to be part of the fun, leans on Izumi. Their combined weight makes them fall to the ground. Izumi finally wakes up, surprised to find Mizuki under him. Mizuki explains that Yujiro knocked Izumi over. She then explains that she was worried he was going to catch a cold, so she was going to wake him up, but he was sleeping so peacefully that she felt guilty. So she had intended to just block the wind from him. Izumi finds her explanation funny, so he calls her strange. Mizuki insists Izumi is the one who fell on her. Izumi feels embarrassed and changes the direction of their conversation by telling Mizuki they need to get dinner before there's nothing left. Mizuki stares at him and wonders why he'd have quit his sport. Suddenly, a gust of wind prevents her from voicing her thoughts. During sports class, Mizuki is caught off guard when Shuichi casually puts his arm around her. He pushes her lightly so she can take her position to get herself timed for a sprint. As she runs, she surprises them with how fast she is. Finishing her sprint, she notices Izumi mingling with others and feels like she lost her chance to learn more about him. Shuichi notices that Kyogo seems surprised about something, and he learns from Kyogo that Mizuki had just broken a school record. Word quickly spreads, and Shuichi is approached by Hayato, who asks his aid in recruiting Mizuki for their team. Mizuki finds herself cornered by Hayato, who asks her to join the soccer club. Before she can respond, other sports clubs also approach her, and she ends up dashing out, hoping to get them off her tail. Mizuki's speed amazes everyone as they struggle to catch up to her. She manages to hide outside a building as the clubs run past the window. She spots Izumi sleeping nearby and approaches him cautiously. Mizuki inches her face closer, only to hear voices nearby looking for her. She chooses to hide behind a bush a short distance away from Izumi since she just realized she had tried to kiss him. Izumi wakes up from the noise and sees her, and soon someone asks him if he had seen Mizuki. Izumi decides to tell him that Mizuki went to a different building. When Izumi tries to tell Mizuki that they are gone, Mizuki is no longer in the area. Mizuki sighs as she exits another building, only to see Shuichi, who challenges her to a soccer game. Mizuki is confused as to why she has to have a face-off with Shuichi. Not giving her a chance to deny him, Shuichi says men never back down from a challenge. While walking Yujiro, Izumi finds them in the middle of their match. Both Mizuki and Shuichi are not holding back. At one point, Shuichi unexpectedly elbows Mizuki in the face, making her fall to the ground and lose consciousness. Both Izumi and Shuichi rush to her aid. Izumi tells Shuichi to call the school doctor while he carries Mizuki to the clinic. Shuichi initially insists that he should carry Mizuki until Izumi reasons that Shuichi is faster. As Shuichi runs off, Izumi starts to lift Mizuki. He notices something off about her as he does so. In the infirmary, Shuichi is relieved that Mizuki will be alright as Hokuto complains over his overreaction. Hokuto brushes past Izumi, slightly bumping his side. Izumi stares at the hand where he felt something. Mizuki stirs awake, which excites Shuichi, but Hokuto kicks him before Shuichi can act on his relief. Shuichi is about to argue, but Izumi grabs Shuichi and drags him out of the infirmary. Mizuki quickly tightens her necktie, preparing to go. However, Hokuto stops her and asks how her head is. Mizuki avoids eye contact and tells him that she feels better. However, as she makes a move to stand, Hokuto blocks her and asks what a girl like her is doing in an all-boys school. A gentle chime rang, signaling the height of summer. Mizuki sat next to her grandmother and excitedly shared her vacation plans. Her grandmother gently chided her, reminding her to calm down. Mizuki's attention moved to the television, where Izumi was shown on the screen. She observed Izumi at first, doubting he could make the jump, as her grandmother said that Izumi was an amazing athlete. She was surprised when she watched him effortlessly jump over the pole, which marked the start of her feelings for him. At present, Mizuki gives Hokuto an uneasy look, worried since he had figured out she is a girl. Before the tension can settle, Izumi interrupts by re-entering the room, urging Mizuki to go home. Relieved and thankful, she follows Izumi while thanking Hokuto for the care. Before she leaves, Hokuto tells her that he is looking forward to their next meeting. While walking to the dorms, Mizuki's head spirals in worry over her gender being leaked. She barely notices Izumi calling her and almost wanders on her private property. Flustered, she rejoins him on the path leading back to their dorm. Izumi tells her to ice her head. Remembering the pain makes her wince, and suddenly she wonders how she even reached the infirmary, since someone must have carried her. The thought that it was Izumi makes her blush. She tries to shake off her feelings, but the memory of her attempt to kiss him rushes in. She hides her reddening face and desperately tries to change the subject. Izumi turns around to ask something. He hesitates and lets it go, walking ahead and leaving Mizuki staring after him. Back at the dorm, Shuichi rushes to apologize for hurting Mizuki. Mizuki reassures him it's fine and stares at Izumi, who is walking off. The other dorm members crowd around, curious why Shuichi seems so upset. Mizuki eases their worry by joking that Shuichi is only making a fuss over sweet curry for dinner. Touched, Shuichi calls her a good guy, elevating Mizuki's status as his bestie, and cries openly. Mizuki hands him a tissue and figures that she will accept the title of his best friend. After having dinner, Mizuki enters her dorm, calling on Izumi to go have his dinner. She finds him already in bed. She decides not to bother him, since she has more pressing matters to worry about, specifically how to make sure Hokuto doesn't leak her secret. Unknown to her, Izumi lies awake. He replays the moment he carried Mizuki in his mind. He is pretty sure that Mizuki is a girl, but wonders if he's the only one who is aware of it. The next morning, Izumi leaves before Mizuki. Outside, Shuichi catches Mizuki, and they walk to school together. Shuichi explains that Izumi likely left early for classroom duty, which makes Mizuki wonder if that's the real reason. Near the school gate, a crowd of students gathers by the bulletin board. Mizuki and Shuichi go to check out what the commotion is about, and Mizuki is shocked to see a photo of her and Izumi caught in a compromising position, with an indicated warning that she is a dangerous pretty boy. Izumi rips it down instantly and goes to confront Wataru. Worried, Mizuki decides to follow him and catches him as he is warning Wataru never to post photos of him like that again. When Izumi leaves, Wataru has the gall to talk low about him and Mizuki. Angry, Mizuki punches him in the face. Her hand throbs as she storms off. She bumps into Hokuto near the school stairs, who applauds her courage, casually calls her Mizuki-chan, and checks her hand. She pulls away, insisting she knows self-defense. Hokuto smiles and reminds her that he still awaits her answer. After class, Mizuki watches Izumi closely. When she calls out to walk home together, he leaves without looking back. Her suspicion hardens that he really is avoiding her. She walks back with Shuichi instead. He asks what's wrong, and she admits Izumi won't talk to her. Shuichi suggests it's because of the photo incident, but as he looks at Mizuki, something changes. She suddenly looks soft and delicate. To him, Mizuki looks beautiful and his heart starts pounding erratically. Meanwhile, Mizuki spots Izumi talking to Rika, a girl she's never seen before. Alarmed, she grabs Shuichi's arm and drags him away. Shuichi's heartbeat goes wild, and he wonders what is going on with him. Wanting to satisfy her curiosity, Mizuki walks Yujiro as a front and secretly spies on Izumi and the girl. She hears Rika asking Izumi to jump again. Izumi says he's done with the sport. Rika accuses him of lying, aware that Izumi is very passionate about the sport. She brings up a past accident, blaming herself for his injury. Izumi assures her his leg healed long ago, and quitting was his choice. Yujiro suddenly barks and drags Mizuki out of her hiding spot. Embarrassed, she makes an excuse by blaming Yujiro and runs away from them to give them back their privacy. Sitting alone on a bench, Mizuki wonders if Rika is Izumi's girlfriend. Mizuki had no idea that Izumi had an incident, which makes her realize how little of him she actually knows. She stares at the leaves above her when Izumi's face suddenly appears. Izumi tells her that dinner will be finished if she doesn't leave, so they end up walking home together. Unable to stop herself, Mizuki finally asks about Rika. Izumi explains they only knew each other in middle school. Mizuki wonders if that is all there is to it. As they cross the street, Mizuki comments on the fact that Yujiro hates men except Izumi. Izumi shares that Yujiro likely is okay with him because he was the one who found him. Half a year ago, Izumi saw Yujiro being forcibly dragged to an animal shelter. Before he knew it, he had Yujiro in his arms and was begging the janitor of the dorm to let him keep Yujiro. He explains that Yujiro used to be owned by a woman and her daughter. The woman remarried and her new husband didn't like dogs, so she decided to forfeit Yujiro to an animal shelter. He believes Yujiro doesn't like men because a man was the reason his family abandoned him. Mizuki is stunned by his kindness and quickly follows him as they continue to walk. She then asks if Izumi has been avoiding her. Izumi stops and mutters to himself that he doesn't know how to treat a girl. Mizuki hears him saying something but doesn't catch the words. When Izumi turns, he sees a vehicle speed toward them. Izumi shoves Mizuki aside, pinning her safely against the wall. Mizuki's heart races and her face burns. Seeing her all well, Izumi steps back as if nothing happened and walks ahead, leading Yujiro home. Mizuki follows, her resolve to stay by his side stronger than ever. As Mizuki watches Izumi in class the next day, she finally makes her decision. She knows how she'll answer Hokuto. After her meeting with Hokuto, Mizuki sees Rika waiting by the school gate. Their eyes meet and Rika rushes to Mizuki. Rika reveals that she is childhood friends with Izumi. Mizuki accidentally blurts out that she thought Rika was Izumi's girlfriend due to how close they seem. Rika laughs at her assumption and says they are good friends and that she was the manager of the middle school track team. She shares that she would have wanted to be his girlfriend. Mizuki realizes that she and Rika are the same since they both love Izumi. Rika pulls Mizuki back to her senses as she asks Mizuki for a favor. In the evening, as Mizuki eats her dinner across from Izumi, she shares that Rika will be waiting for Izumi beside the park tomorrow after school. Izumi is surprised that Mizuki had met Rika on her way home from school. He tells Mizuki to ignore Rika, but Mizuki is persistent and urges him to meet her. Irritated by the knowledge of everyone being worried about him, Izumi abruptly leaves. Shuichi catches Mizuki looking worriedly over Izumi and sits down with her. He asks if Izumi is still ignoring her and tells her not to worry because Izumi is very random at times. Mizuki spots Shuichi's peach juice and asks for a sip. Mizuki leaves after taking a drink and Shuichi is left to look at the open juice bottle. He spirals into thinking if drinking it after her qualifies as an indirect kiss. Before he can drink it, Hyogo grabs the remaining peach juice to drink. Angry that he was robbed of the chance of kissing Mizuki, Shuichi shakes Hyogo aggressively. Shuichi comes back to his senses when he realizes he shouldn't be this upset over the drink. The next day after school, Mizuki wonders if Izumi met with Rika. On her walk, she crosses paths with Izumi walking Yujiro. He was looking at the track field where high jump equipment was set. Izumi's gaze was wistful toward the field. Mizuki realizes that Izumi misses the sport. She comes up to him and strikes a conversation, expressing that the path must be part of Yujiro's walks, which Izumi confirms and shares that he had talked to Rika. Mizuki smiles over this. She realizes that Izumi doesn't hate high jump. As they walk back to the dorm together, they don't notice a girl spying on them. Back in their room, Mizuki wonders what Izumi and Rika talked about. However, she makes up her mind that it doesn't matter. In the shower, Izumi continues to question how Mizuki's secret doesn't make sense. A few moments later, Shuichi knocks on their door, asking for notes from their English 1 class. Shuichi thanks Izumi and asks where Mizuki is. Izumi plainly answers that Mizuki is in the shower, which takes a few seconds to register in Shuichi's head. In the shower, Mizuki recounts her answer to Hokuto. During their meeting, she shared how Izumi is a high jumper that she has long admired and her reason for attending the all-boys school. Izumi inspired her to start track and grew to love it. As she improved at the sport, she was overcome with the desire to meet Izumi. She learned that he had quit high jump, but she hopes that someday they can jump together again. Hokuto counters that Izumi has quit jumping, so there is no point for Mizuki to stay at school. Mizuki refuses to surrender and says meeting Izumi only made her want to get to know him more. She decides she won't drop out even if Hokuto bullies her. After hearing her answer, Hokuto tells her that if Mizuki went the route of seducing him, he would have her expelled on the spot. He allows her to stay since he reasons it is none of his business. Mizuki, realizing that she can stay, wraps her arms around Hokuto, who finds her just as annoying as any other woman. When asked how Hokuto found out about Mizuki being a girl, he says he is a doctor who also happens to be gay. Close to finishing her bath, Mizuki turns off the shower. Outside, Izumi wonders what is wrong with Shuichi before remembering his watch in the bathroom. He opens the door to the bath, discovering that Mizuki has the shower curtain partially open. Regaining his composure, Izumi calmly asks Mizuki to grab his watch by the sink. Mizuki reaches for it and timidly hands it back, careful not to show her front. Getting his watch, he retreats to his bed. He thinks Mizuki is very careless for not closing the shower curtain when she wants to keep her gender a secret. Mizuki exits the bath, clothed in her bedclothes. She thinks she is safe, given that Izumi may have only seen her back. She is about to climb onto the upper bunk, but stops to ask if the watch is okay. Izumi gives her a sure affirmation. Once he is sure Mizuki is on her bed, he looks at the watch and notes that he has to get it repaired tomorrow. Meanwhile, Mizuki continues to think that her secret is safe and is determined not to drop out of school. One evening at the dorms, Shuichi has trouble studying as he keeps getting distracted. When he went to Izumi and Mizuki's dorm, he learned that Mizuki was in the shower. For some reason, he kept thinking about it, even getting to the point that he started to picture how Mizuki would look while showering. He realizes he's oddly attracted to Mizuki, so he tries to convince himself otherwise by declaring he likes women. Despite being noisy, Taiki doesn't seem to mind his outbursts, mentioning that Shuichi's aura is pink. During the day, Izumi, Mizuki, and Shuichi receive a scolding from their teacher since they arrived late together and have obvious bags under their eyes. Once they reach their seats, the teacher continues his lesson, only to be distracted when he spots the three of them sleeping in class. He tells their classmates to inform them that he wants to see them after school. At the end of school, the three enter a classroom to meet with the teacher. Hyogo makes fun of them since they are an unusual sight, and Shuichi shares that he has some troubles. Mizuki tries to ask Shuichi what his problems are. Shuichi blushes, suddenly overwhelmed with how Mizuki looks. Not liking his own reaction, he decides to run away from them. They stare at the door, deciding not to question his actions. After some time, they leave the room to get some food, but Mizuki tells them to go ahead since she wants to buy some bread. After some time, Mizuki emerges from the faculty female restroom. It is her first day of her period and she has trouble with the pain. When she finally leaves the school, Mizuki lets out a heavy sigh, remembering her visit to the clinic. She drinks the medicine Hokuto gave her. Hokuto mentions how defeated she already looks. As she walks out of the school, she acknowledges that Hokuto, knowing she's female, is actually helping her, though she feels conflicted about asking him for more help. She spots Rika again when she approaches the school gate and notices she seems mad about something. Rika thanks Mizuki for passing her message, noting that Izumi seems to listen to Mizuki more than anyone. Mizuki assumes Rika is looking for Izumi again, which Rika denies. She is actually looking for Mizuki and asks her to stay away from Izumi. Rika accuses Mizuki of following him around and preventing him from growing. Mizuki tries to defend herself, but Rika insists Izumi is no longer himself. Mizuki counters that Izumi is worth more than his wins, and that Rika is the one who is clueless about his feelings. Internally, Mizuki is conflicted since she still wants to see Izumi jump. Rika raises her hand to hit Mizuki, but Izumi catches it just in time. He scolds Rika for her actions, saying that he never asked Rika to help him. He explains that the real reason he quit is that he choked under pressure. He reprimands Rika for involving Mizuki and tells her that her act is annoying. This breaks Rika's spirit, and Izumi walks away, dragging Mizuki. After some distance, Mizuki pulls her arm away, scolding Izumi for the way he treated Rika. She expresses that Rika's outburst is only because she cares about Izumi. Izumi tries to retort, but ends up storming off, leaving Mizuki behind. Mizuki returns alone to the dorm, where the receptionist hands her a package from America. Hyogo and Shinji see her package and insist that since they are friends with her, she should share the goods with them. She ends up leading them to her room, but notices Shuichi pacing in front of it. When he finally notices her, he shares that he has souvenirs from his mother and had wanted to share some with her. Mizuki looks over in delight at the sweets, making her look cute in Shuichi's eyes. They open Shuichi's sweets in Mizuki's room, disappointed since it is just normal red bean pancakes. They insist Mizuki should open her package next. Upon opening it, they see imported snacks and Hyogo and Shinji grab what they want. Seeing the items don't endanger her identity, she decides to dig into the package, accidentally letting a photo of Julia fall out. The boys spot the photo, noting how hot the girl is, and Shuichi immediately grabs Mizuki's arm and asks if Julia happens to be her girlfriend. Mizuki laughs and says that it is her best friend. Hyogo interprets Shuichi's actions as being jealous over Mizuki having a girl, which makes Shuichi realize that how he acted was odd. As he tries to make sense of his actions, the other boys spot another wrapped package and a letter from Mizuki's brother. Mizuki decides to open the letter, realizing too late that the wrapped item might be something that would give her away. To her horror, the boys had already unwrapped the item, revealing a dress. Thinking fast, Mizuki insists that the dress is meant as some sort of prank from her brother. Izumi then enters the room and Mizuki quiets down. He casually drops his bag and jacket over his desk and prepares to head out, telling them that he's just going to take Yujiro for a walk. Shuichi notices that Izumi is colder than usual, but the others say that he seemed pretty normal. Mizuki, on the other hand, feels guilty for telling him off earlier. In her top bunk, Mizuki video calls Julia, who is glad that her package has finally arrived. Julia asks if Mizuki has already met Izumi, to which Mizuki confirms half-heartedly. Julia notices that Mizuki doesn't seem too happy, but Mizuki brushes it off, saying her being in Japan has left her in culture shock. Julia accepts her response and tells Mizuki to do her best. Mizuki appreciates Julia's words and thanks her before ending the call. With her spirits lifted, Mizuki reflects on how being depressed isn't like her. The call leaves her determined to renew her attempts at becoming friends with Izumi. She takes a deep breath, pulls her curtains, and cheerily greets him, inviting him to dinner. Izumi refuses and draws the curtain closed on his bottom bunk. Mizuki ends up eating dinner alone, but shocks everyone with how much she is eating. In the following days, she clings to Izumi as much as she can, be it going to the science room, joining him on walks with Yujiro, or being excited about dinner. After class, as Mizuki goes to follow Izumi, Shuichi and his friends talk about how gutsy Mizuki is, but Shuichi tries to block out the conversation, saying he doesn't care. Shinji feels sorry for her, saying Izumi should really just mend things with Mizuki. This catches Shuichi's attention as he shakes Shinji, trying to get the truth from him. After he learns that Mizuki and Izumi had a fight, he rushes out of the classroom in tears, feeling guilty for not being a good best friend to Mizuki. An unassuming Mizuki passes by as Wataru watches her from a corner. He promises himself to make her pay for the injustice he received. Minami accidentally bumps into Wataru and after apologizing continues his walk. Wataru decides that he will always make Minami pay, simply because Minami is attractive and they are a. Minami spots Mizuki walking absent-mindedly down the hallway. Crossing his arms, he believes is a waste that Mizuki is a boy. From behind him, Hokuto asks if Minami is attracted to Mizuki. Minami tells his uncle that he does not swing that way. Hokuto reminds Minami that he should show respect to him at school. Ignoring his statement, Minami remembers that his mother has something to give Hokuto. Stepping back, Hokuto asks what the witch wants, which Minami responds to by chiding him for calling his mother names. He tells Hokuto that he left the item in the dorm and will bring it if he remembers. Hokuto realizes that the item might be something he knows. At her dorm, Mizuki hugs a pillow, slowly losing hope since it's been days since her fight with Izumi. Izumi arrives and she tries to invite him to dinner. Izumi replies that he already ate. She tries again, hoping that he will take the bait and start a conversation, but nothing seems to work. She tries to joke that their fight kind of reminds her of how newlyweds fight. Izumi finally snaps and cages her against the wall, calling her annoying for all her careless jokes. He is also irritated since it seems like Mizuki doesn't understand why he yelled at Rika. Before he can say anything he might regret, he leaves the room and Mizuki slides to the ground, upset because all she wanted to do was lighten the mood. Shuichi is in the dorm halls, feeling bad about how poorly he had treated Mizuki. He wonders if it falls under jealousy and shakes his head in denial. He catches Izumi leaving the room looking pissed off and realizes something must have happened to Mizuki. He hurriedly enters the room and sees Mizuki on the floor. When he checks on her, Mizuki tries to laugh it off and says that she had pissed off Izumi. She begins crying and Shuichi fixes her with a troubled gaze. Shuichi is overcome with the urge to hold Mizuki. Fighting his desire, he settles for patting Mizuki's head, urging her to cry if she feels like it. At the dorm's vending machine, Izumi vents, troubled by his situation with Mizuki and Rika. Back in the room, Mizuki apologizes to Shuichi, and he replies that Mizuki should come talk to him if she feels troubled. Unknown to the pair, Izumi was on his way back to the room, a bottle of peach juice in his hand as a means of apology. However, when he sees Shuichi's shoes by the door, he decides to leave. He hands the drink to Shinji and Kyogo, claiming he does not like sweet drinks. The next day, Shuichi demands to talk privately with Izumi. At the same time, Mizuki has just entered the school grounds, her eyes notably swollen due to crying. Minami catches her and notices she's been crying, so he invites her to chat. Back to Shuichi and Izumi, Shuichi demands to know what had happened between Mizuki and Izumi. Izumi refuses to answer, which only angers Shuichi, who insists that it's his business to know. He decides that he wouldn't mind being gay if it meant Mizuki wouldn't have to cry again. Izumi is about to retaliate against Shuichi's sudden aggression, but he spots Mizuki and Minami together. Worried, he bolts after them, concerned about what Minami might do to her. Arriving where he spotted them, he notices they are no longer there, and Wataru creeps out of the bushes, teasing Izumi that he knows where Mizuki and Minami are. He refuses to tell Izumi, but when Izumi grabs him and demands their location, he relents and tells him that they moved to the student council room. Izumi tosses Wataru over to Shuichi and tells him that Wataru had taken some dodgy shots of Mizuki. This effectively shifts Shuichi's anger to Wataru so that Izumi can go after Mizuki. Izumi bursts open the door to the student council office, only to find Mizuki and Minami having coffee together. Minami announces he needs to leave for homeroom, telling Mizuki she is free to chat with him anytime. As he passes Izumi, he warns him not to bully Mizuki again. Finally alone, Izumi steps fully into the room and decides to tell Mizuki the truth about why he quit high jump. He mentions that there was a big competition back in middle school, and performing well could land him in a good school known for track and field. Unfortunately, right before the competition, he got injured while saving Rika from a truck. He acknowledges that he could have done better if he had actually tried and regrets choking under pressure during the competition. However, he admits that now he feels like he wants to try jumping again. Mizuki is surprised that he is sharing this with her, and he clears up that she deserves to know because she is his fan. Mizuki begins crying tears of joy, causing Izumi to pull her to his chest, telling her to stop crying. He adds that this time he will definitely try his best. They leave the student council room and Mizuki clings to his arm, happy that her efforts weren't put to waste. Meanwhile, Shuichi is still teaching Wataru a lesson. While walking with Yujiro, Mizuki has to stop him from going to see Izumi, telling him that she promised she wouldn't be around to watch Izumi practice. By evening, Izumi finishes his training and returns to the locker room, where he finds a towel, a water bottle, and a short note from Mizuki waiting for him. A little later, he heads back to the dorm and presses a cold bottle of peach juice against Mizuki's forehead as a quiet thank you. Mizuki smiles, happy that Izumi noticed her small gesture. Almost immediately, she starts to worry if what she did was not manly, but reassures herself that since Izumi isn't saying anything about it, it should be fine. Meanwhile, Izumi is also conflicted. He doesn't know how to react to Mizuki's kindness, especially since she doesn't know that he already realizes she's actually a girl. The next morning, Mizuki finishes changing just as Izumi stops by to check on her. He gives her a once-over and notices her messy hair, quickly fixing it for her since she didn't have time to comb it properly while rushing. At lunch, Mizuki orders the cafeteria's fox-wheat noodles. Izumi, tempted by how good it looks, decides to order the same thing. Mizuki feels thrilled with how things are progressing. Izumi has become friendlier and he has even rejoined the track team. When they sit down with Shuichi and the others, they realize that almost everyone ordered the same meal. While the group enjoys the noodles and rich broth, Shuichi boldly declares that clear broth is the superior choice for wheat noodles. Izumi and Mizuki admit that they personally prefer Kansai-style broth the most. As the conversation continues, Mizuki notices several students buzzing with excitement about the upcoming baseball game. The boys are shocked that she doesn't know about it, explaining that it's a big deal because they'll be playing against a co-ed school, meaning it's a rare chance to meet girls. Kyogo jokes that the boys in the stands are more fired up than the athletes themselves and tries to get Shuichi to play along. Shuichi awkwardly agrees, but his gaze drifts toward Mizuki, and a familiar warmth rises to his cheeks. After class, Shuichi continues watching Mizuki as she chats with their friends. He forces himself to snap out of his flustered state, determined to finally approach her. Shuichi grabs Mizuki by the arm and nervously asks if she can come watch him play this coming Sunday. Mizuki excitedly agrees, which makes Shuichi cheer out loud. On the day of the soccer match, Shuichi's eye twitches as he stiffly greets everyone who came to cheer him on. He was secretly hoping that only Mizuki would show up, but she ended up bringing the whole group. As he heads to his position on the field, Shuichi decides to focus and play his best since he still wants to show Mizuki his good side. Meanwhile, Shinji and Kyogo are trying to flirt with girls in the crowd. In the end, Shuichi and his team win the match. As they walk back toward the dorms, Mizuki congratulates Shuichi on his performance. Shuichi happily chats with Mizuki, though he's slightly annoyed by Shinji and Kyogo sticking so close to them. His irritation disappears the moment Mizuki calls him cool. Hearing that makes him incredibly happy, and for a brief moment, he forgets about everything else. Suddenly, Makoto approaches the group to speak with Izumi. Mizuki is confused about who he is, so Kyogo explains that Makoto was Izumi's rival back in middle school. Makoto walks straight up to Izumi, mocks him, and then walks past them. This strikes a nerve with Mizuki, and she deliberately raises her voice so Makoto can hear her. She calls him a coward and fires back every insult he threw, only to realize too late that she sounded far too feminine. Makoto seems to catch on that Mizuki is a girl, but his attention is quickly pulled away when other girls start calling out to him. He decides to leave the group alone for now, but not before throwing one last jab at Izumi and calling Mizuki Missy. Mizuki bristles with anger, and the feeling doesn't fade even after returning to the dorms. She recalls the conversation she had with Kyogo during their walk back to the dorms. Apparently, Makoto was undefeated until Izumi entered the track and field scene. While Makoto clearly saw Izumi as a rival, it seemed that Izumi didn't care enough about him. Still, the thought of Makoto is enough to frustrate Mizuki. Izumi soon exits the bathroom and tells Mizuki that she can take her turn to shower. As Mizuki stands up, Izumi casually remarks that her face looks like a monkey whenever she gets worked up over Makoto. He sincerely thanks her for standing up for him earlier, which instantly makes Mizuki smile. One day, Taiki receives a large delivery of lemons from his mother. The boys quickly start wondering what to do with them, realizing there are far too many to finish. After school, Mizuki consults Shuichi about an idea she has for the excess lemons. While they're in the middle of discussing it, Makoto appears in front of their school and begins making his way inside the campus. Shuichi and Mizuki start walking toward the exit together, but Mizuki moves ahead since Shuichi still has something to take care of. She doesn't notice Makoto's presence until he suddenly calls her a runt. Mizuki turns to face him and Makoto bluntly asks where the track team is. After getting a better look at her, he admits he's surprised she's a guy. Mizuki refuses to answer his question, so instead of backing off, Makoto grabs her, lifts her up, and starts carrying her around, intent on finding the track team. Izumi is busy practicing when he spots Makoto approaching, carrying Mizuki along with him. Mizuki shouts an apology toward Izumi, while Makoto mocks her for being female-like. He even slaps her to emphasize his point. Makoto eventually puts her down when Izumi firmly tells him to, but the moment her feet hit the ground, Mizuki slaps Makoto. Makoto is about to retaliate, but Izumi quickly steps between them and warns him to back off. Seeing how protective Izumi is of Mizuki, Makoto smirks and gets the idea that something might be going on between them. He teases Izumi, claiming he'll borrow Mizuki from him someday. Izumi grabs Makoto by the shirt and once again tells him to back off. Makoto grabs Izumi as well, continuing to taunt him. Mizuki is the one who gets fired up, but before she can say anything, Izumi covers her mouth. As Makoto starts to walk away, Mizuki can't stand hearing him badmouth Izumi. She pries Izumi's hand off her mouth and shouts more insults at Makoto, even calling him a stumpy-legged fox, causing Makoto to nearly trip as he walks off. Makoto continues walking away, clearly trying to hide his anger. Once he's finally out of sight, Mizuki looks up and notices Izumi shaking. Mizuki immediately panics, thinking that Izumi is angry with her. However, it turns out he's actually laughing at her earlier taunt. After calming himself down, he convinces Mizuki that it's time to head to the dorms. They return just in time for dinner, and Mizuki beams when she sees that they're serving fox-wheat noodles. Izumi can't help but chuckle as he remembers the insult Mizuki said. Their friends give him a mix of strange looks, since it's rare to see Izumi laughing so openly. Later, back in their room, Mizuki reflects on how strong Izumi is for not letting Makoto's words get to him. She knocks on the bathroom door to let Izumi know that she's going to visit Yujiro. Inside the bathroom, however, Izumi is still troubled by Makoto's insults. With Yujiro, Mizuki recounts everything that happened earlier. She also tells him why she decided to come to Japan. She explains that she was completely in awe when she first saw Izumi on TV, and around that same time she was having a major fight with Julia. Watching Izumi gave her the courage to do her best every day, and eventually she and Julia became close friends again. It was also Julia who encouraged her to fly all the way to Japan and chase after Izumi. Unbeknownst to Mizuki, Izumi is standing just around the corner and hears everything she says. He finally steps out, lightly scolding Mizuki for not wearing enough layers. He then invites her to come watch his practice. The following day, Mizuki is overflowing with excitement at the thought of watching Izumi up close. However, when Izumi jumps, he fails to clear the bar cleanly. Mizuki watches in shock as he tries again and again, only to fail each time. Unable to watch him struggle, Mizuki grabs his arm and begs him to stop, saying she understands now that he's not back in shape yet. Izumi only scolds himself for not being able to clear his mind properly. He then gently ruffles Mizuki's hair and tells her not to feel sorry for him, because she's the very reason he wants to keep trying. Despite his words, Mizuki can't shake her guilt and decides to visit Hokuto for advice. After listening, Hokuto suggests that the problem might be mental. He reasons that Izumi's mind could be trying to protect his body from getting injured. Seeing that Mizuki is clearly troubled, Hokuto suddenly changes into an outrageous outfit and starts dancing the hula in an attempt to cheer her up. Once he sees that she's better, he quickly changes back and tells her to stop overthinking everything. He explains that this is something Izumi has to overcome on his own, and that Mizuki's role is simply to be there to receive him when he's ready. For now, she should focus only on the things she can do for him. As Mizuki leaves, she wonders if cheering Izumi up might be one of those things. Back at the clinic, Hokuto receives a message from his sister, complaining that he still hasn't received a thank you for the present she sent over. Hokuto calls Minami and asks him to drop it off, but Minami replies that Hokuto can just pick it up at the dorm's front desk. Mizuki returns to the dorm and accidentally bumps into Shuichi near the entrance. As she helps him pick them up, Shuichi explains that they're for the hot pot party, meant to use up all the lemons. But Shuichi hurriedly tells her to keep her voice down since he doesn't want the entire dorm to find out. Kyogo arrives soon after, carrying several plastic bags filled with drinks. Taiki and Shinji peek out from around the corner and inform them that the dining room is ready. The group gathers all the bags and heads over together, with Taiki accidentally grabbing a bottle that had been left at the front desk for Hokuto to pick up. Once they're settled, the boys immediately start tossing ingredients into the pot. Izumi watches the process with visible concern, wondering if this is more of a dare than a meal. After a while, the hot pot actually starts to look presentable, with lemon slices floating neatly on top. As they begin choosing drinks, Izumi lets Mizuki pick one for him. She unknowingly chooses the wine, mistaking it for some kind of grape juice. As the party continues, Izumi starts to feel strange and excuses himself. Around the same time, Hokuto arrives at the door and calls Minami because the wine isn't at the front desk. Izumi struggles to make his way back to his room, confused over his state. When the boys notice he's been gone for a while, Mizuki volunteers to go check on him. As she heads out, Minami spots her leaving the dining hall. Mizuki enters their room and finds Izumi sitting beside his bed. She approaches him to ask if he's okay, but he suddenly opens his eyes to look at her. Meanwhile, Minami wanders into the dining area and finds the boys in the middle of their hot pot party. They immediately invite him to join, but his attention is drawn to the uncorked wine bottle. The boys stare at him in confusion, completely unaware that it's alcohol. Back in the room, as Mizuki leans closer to Izumi, he suddenly moves toward her as well. Startled, she tries to back away, but Izumi continues advancing. Once she's cornered, Izumi traps her in a kiss. It takes a few seconds for Mizuki to realize that Izumi is kissing her. When it finally sinks in, she panics, pushes him away, and punches him. Now free, she bolts out of the room and runs down the hallway, passing Minami along the way. Minami calls out to her, only realizing it was Mizuki after she disappears from sight. Still overwhelmed by the sudden kiss, Mizuki somehow ends up in front of Yujiro's doghouse, where she finally breaks down and starts crying. The next morning, Izumi wakes up on the floor. As he reaches for his phone, he notices a message from Mizuki saying that she's already left. When Izumi arrives at school, Shuichi and the others immediately react to his face since he's sporting a black eye. Izumi admits that he honestly has no idea how it happened, explaining that he woke up with it already there. Feeling guilty, Mizuki suddenly runs out of the classroom and quickly returns with an ice pack. She quietly offers it to Izumi so he can cool the swelling. Once he accepts it, Mizuki slowly inches away and moves to the hallway. Out in the hallway, she silently apologizes, knowing full well that she's the one who gave him the black eye. At lunchtime, Shuichi stretches and happily announces that it's finally time to eat. Izumi uses the moment to approach Mizuki and ask if she was the one who put the blanket over him. Nervous, Mizuki confirms that she did, explaining that she found him asleep on the floor. Izumi thanks her sincerely, but instead of simply accepting it, Mizuki suddenly makes an excuse and says she needs to rush out to buy bread. After classes end, Mizuki can't stop worrying that Izumi might think she's strange. At the same time, she feels a bit disappointed, since it seems that Izumi doesn't remember anything. As the memory of the kiss resurfaces, Mizuki blushes and desperately tries to shake it away. Minami notices her from where he's resting on a nearby bench and asks if someone made her cry again. Embarrassed, Mizuki quickly denies it, but Minami teases her, pointing out that he saw her last night and that she had the exact same expression on her face. He scoots over to make room for her, and before she realizes it, Mizuki finds herself opening up about how overwhelmed she's been with everything that's happened recently. Minami suddenly fixes her with a droopy, suggestive look and offers to help her forget all her troubles, promising her a good time. Alarmed by his tone, Mizuki immediately reminds Minami that she's a guy. Minami admits that he was only joking. Once things settle down, Minami mentions that a bottle of wine was found during their hot pot party and that it had already been uncorked. Minami doesn't think anything serious happens, since only a small amount was consumed. However, this revelation makes Mizuki realize the real reason why Izumi suddenly kissed her. Sensing her mood, Minami offers Mizuki his melon pan to cheer her up. She happily accepts it and starts eating. From the clinic, Hokuto notices the exchange and can't help but worry that Mizuki might be in danger of being found out by Minami. Senri also witnesses the scene from afar. By the time Mizuki heads to the locker room to retrieve her shoes, she feels a lot calmer. She remembers that her father has a friend who tends to kiss people when he's drunk, which helps her rationalize what happened. When she opens her locker, she's startled as a pile of thumbtacks spills out. Shuichi rushes over in concern, and when they look inside, they see that Mizuki's shoes are filled with thumbtacks. Mizuki initially misreads the threatening note left behind, but Shuichi quickly corrects her. She then finds another note and tries to read it, only for Izumi to step in and properly explain what it says. Izumi tears up the note and calmly reassures Mizuki that the threats are probably just a prank. Mizuki quietly agrees, but Shuichi is unsettled and insists that they all walk home together. Not wanting to worry them, Mizuki urges the boys to head to practice instead, saying she can take care of herself. As they part ways, Shuichi tries to tell Izumi that he should be kinder to Mizuki. Before Izumi can respond, the tennis team suddenly approaches them, asking about Mizuki. Instead of answering, Izumi bluntly tells them to get lost and storms off toward practice. Shuichi realizes that Izumi might be far angrier than he lets on. Back at the dorm, Mizuki wonders if she somehow offended someone. But when nothing comes to mind, her thoughts drift back to Izumi. Almost on cue, Izumi returns to their room just as she voices her concern. Trying to hide her embarrassment, Mizuki awkwardly asks how his bruise is doing. Izumi casually replies that it doesn't really hurt. Relieved despite the awkwardness of looking at his face, Mizuki invites Izumi to dinner. As she does, she can't help thinking about how lucky she is that her first kiss was taken by Izumi. Reality sinks in since the kiss really was her first. Overwhelmed, she sinks to the ground. When Izumi checks on her, she hurriedly explains that she just felt lightheaded from hunger. The next day, a small crowd gathers to watch as Mizuki opens her shoe locker. To her surprise, only her shoes are inside. Thinking it's finally safe, she slowly reaches for them, but the moment she pulls them out, liquid suddenly drips onto the floor. Shuichi grows increasingly frustrated over the bullying, especially since the culprit refuses to face Mizuki directly. His anger nearly leads to a fight with Izumi, who he feels isn't taking the situation seriously enough. Mizuki steps in and insists that she's fine. Moving to the front, she cheerfully says she can just dry her shoes, adding that staying positive is what she does best. With a bright smile, she grabs both boys by the arms and pulls them forward, urging them to start the day. As they run ahead, they fail to notice Senri watching them from behind the corner. Later, during one of their breaks, Hokuto approaches Izumi and advises him to keep a close eye on Mizuki. Back at the dorm, Mizuki shows her friends a photo of her older brother, who looks foreign. She explains that they have different birth mothers and that her brother's birth mother passed away during childbirth. The conversation is suddenly interrupted when Senri makes a snide remark, mocking Mizuki for bragging about her brother like a child. Izumi arrives just in time to witness the scene, walking in as Shuichi is about to demand that Senri apologize. Before the situation can escalate, Minami pushes down on Shuichi's head to prevent him from advancing. He then calmly tells Senri that he didn't like what he just saw. With an annoyed huff, Senri turns away and leaves. Seeing that there's nothing left to mediate, Minami lets go of Shuichi and walks off as well. The boys begin to seriously consider the possibility that Senri is the one bullying Mizuki. Mizuki hesitates at the idea, but they point out that Senri has plenty of reason to resent her, especially since he lost his title as the dorm's idol when Mizuki first moved in. Even so, Mizuki refuses to fully accept the idea. She hopes that by ignoring whoever is targeting her, the bullying will eventually stop. That hope is crushed the very next day at school, when Mizuki finds a cruel message painted on her desk calling her a moron. Her grip tightens on her bag and Shuichi immediately starts to worry. Mizuki announces that she's had enough and is going to search for the culprit herself. She turns to the boys and firmly tells them not to interfere because she wants to handle the situation on her own. After school, Mizuki stays behind and hides near the lockers, determined to catch her bully in the act. Soon she notices someone approaching her shoe locker. Seizing the chance, she jumps out and grabs the culprit's wrist, only to realize it's Senri. Senri struggles to break free and accidentally drops his phone, revealing his lock screen. A photo of Minami, which Mizuki easily notices. Senri quickly snatches his phone back, an embarrassed blush spraying across his face as he turns to leave. But he suddenly turns back and bluntly admits how much he hates Mizuki. He confesses that he's jealous of the attention Minami has been giving her just because she's a transfer student. Even before Mizuki arrived, it was already hard for him to get Minami's attention, so he couldn't help but resent her for gaining Minami's favor so easily. Senri tells Mizuki she can report him if she wants, but instead, Mizuki offers to be his friend. The unexpected offer shocks him, so Mizuki explains that she thinks they could be great friends, especially since she also likes someone. Though Senri scoffs and calls her weird, the tension fades and they start talking more comfortably as they leave the locker area. Mizuki eventually exits the school building and finds Izumi waiting for her. They decide to walk back to the dorms together, with Hokuto watching them from the infirmary window. During the walk, Mizuki reflects on how much she enjoys walking home with Izumi. Suddenly, Makoto appears right in front of them and Mizuki immediately tells him to leave them alone. She tries to push him away, but Makoto easily traps her by locking her head against his upper body. While holding her in place, he taunts Izumi and challenges him to join the spring preliminaries. He knows Izumi has been keeping up with the news and is fully aware of his recent achievements. Makoto declares that the spring preliminaries would be the perfect stage to settle their rivalry. Izumi accepts the challenge and demands that Makoto release Mizuki. Makoto releases her, causing Mizuki to stumble back into Izumi's arms and then walks away satisfied. Mizuki eventually regains her footing and gives Izumi a questioning look. Izumi explains that he read in an online article that Makoto had recently broken another record. During winter break, Izumi continues practicing while Mizuki watches from the sidelines, happy to see that he's slowly regaining his form and successfully clearing jumps again. As they walk back to the dorms together, Mizuki casually mentions that she doesn't plan on going home yet, saying it feels like she only just arrived. They're suddenly stopped by two girls from Tokyo High. One of them approaches Mizuki and offers her Valentine's chocolates. Mizuki hesitates, unsure of what to do, until the girl quickly clarifies that she's not asking her out. She just wanted to tell Mizuki that she thinks she's cool for standing up to Makoto. After a gentle nudge from Izumi, Mizuki accepts the chocolates. The second girl then steps forward and offers a neatly wrapped box of chocolates to Izumi. She shyly admits that she's been a longtime fan and asks if he would consider being her boyfriend. Watching the exchange makes Mizuki uncomfortable. To her relief, Izumi politely turns the girl down and refuses the chocolates. Later that evening, Mizuki decides to call Hokuto and talk through her confusion. Hokuto lightly teases her, calling her cute for worrying over something so small, and even suggests that she consider telling Izumi the truth about her gender. When Mizuki immediately refuses, Hokuto reminds her of why she came to this school in the first place. If she wants to stay by Izumi's side, she has to continue living as a guy for as long as she can. Being a girl doesn't diminish her feelings for him, and she has nothing to be ashamed of. Feeling refreshed by the conversation, Mizuki thanks Hokuto for helping her. She then expresses surprise at how knowledgeable he is about jealousy, prompting Hokuto to admit that he once felt the same way about someone he loved back in school. He describes the man as cruel, with a terrible personality, someone who even took advantage of Hokuto's feelings because he knew Hokuto liked him. Mizuki frowns, unable to understand why Hokuto would love someone so unkind. Hokuto doesn't answer her question. After hanging up, he quietly tells himself that maybe he loved that person because he himself was twisted. Not long after, Mizuki receives a message from her brother. In the text, he says that he'll be visiting Japan for a week and hopes they can see each other while he is there. One day, Hokuto is in the middle of flirting with his lover when Mizuki suddenly bursts into the clinic. She freezes in surprise at seeing a non-student in such an intimate situation with Hokuto and quickly apologizes for interrupting them. Both men tell her it's fine and invite her inside. Mizuki explains that she needs Hokuto's help with something. After settling down, she nervously asks if he could help her get some female clothes. Despite her pleading, Hokuto seems unwilling to help at first, distracted as he continues typing on his phone. Thinking he truly won't assist her, Mizuki decides to give up and head home, but Hokuto stops her before she can leave. On the day she is supposed to meet her older brother, Mizuki makes sure Izumi is still asleep before quietly sneaking out of their room. In truth, Izumi has only pulled the curtains shut. Mizuki heads to the common bathroom to change into a dress. The clothes were lent to her by Ryo, Hokuto's younger sister. Mizuki remembers how kind and gentle Ryo was when they met at the clinic and smiles at the thought. Hurrying out of the park to meet her brother, Mizuki has no idea that Izumi is watching her from a nearby bench. She arrives at a hotel where she finally reunites with her brother, Shizuki. Overjoyed, she runs straight toward him, and he immediately lifts her off the ground and kisses her cheek in greeting. Shizuki admits how shocked he was to learn that Mizuki had decided to move to Japan for high school. Feeling embarrassed, Mizuki points out that people are staring because he is still carrying her. Meanwhile, Izumi keeps his distance but follows them discreetly, remaining out of sight. When Shizuki finally puts Mizuki down, he tears up at the sight of her short hair, clearly emotional over how much she's changed. They sit down together at a restaurant where Mizuki learns that Shizuki will be staying in Japan for 2 weeks. She immediately realizes that she must make sure he never finds out that she is attending an all-boys school. Shizuki suddenly becomes overwhelmed, struck by how much Mizuki has grown while he was away on his internship. His expression turns serious as he asks whether Mizuki has already met Izumi. Nervous but honest, Mizuki admits that she has. She abruptly leaves, realizing that she might slip up if she keeps talking about Izumi. Her brother watches her go, quietly thinking about the school she has chosen to attend. The next day, Mizuki and Senri are chatting casually in the classroom like old friends, which immediately makes Shuichi and the others suspicious of their sudden closeness. Senri complains about how much courage he has to build up just to speak to Minami, only to be met with the same curt tone Minami uses with everyone else. Mizuki agrees, saying she understands how crushing it can be when your crush greets you so coldly first thing in the morning. Senri continues venting, insisting that he doesn't even like guys in general and that he only feels this way about Minami. He assumes Mizuki understands what he's going through with her own crush, though in truth, Mizuki doesn't. Shuichi decides he wants to join their conversation, but Senri quickly shuts him down, saying this discussion is only for cute boys. Shuichi fumes at the insult, giving Mizuki the perfect chance to slip away unnoticed. When she steps into the hallway, she spots Izumi. He tells her that he's just come from a meeting with the track team captain about the spring preliminaries. They leave school together but split up so Izumi can head to practice. Suddenly, she hears Shizuki call her name. She turns to see him standing there, and he has just discovered that her school is an all-boys academy. Furious, he grabs her arm and tries to drag her home. Refusing to leave, Mizuki bites his arm. With neither sibling willing to back down, Izumi steps in and calmly suggests that Shizuki should let Mizuki go. Shizuki immediately realizes that Izumi is the boy Mizuki's been so fixated on. Dramatically pointing at Izumi, Shizuki accuses him of alluring Mizuki while Mizuki frantically protests. Shizuki challenges Izumi to show his jump, but Mizuki immediately objects, accidentally revealing that Izumi is still recovering from an injury. This piques Shizuki's interest and he agrees to listen to their full story. After hearing everything, he sets a condition that before he returns to the United States, Izumi must be able to clear the bar cleanly. If he succeeds, Shizuki will allow Mizuki to stay in Japan. When Shizuki leaves, Izumi suddenly asks Mizuki if she can take over Yujiro's walks. He explains that starting today, he wants to double his training efforts. True to her word, Mizuki takes over walking Yujiro. Shuichi notices her and invites her to hang out after she finishes walking Yujiro. They end up at an okonomiyaki restaurant, and it's Mizuki's first time trying it. She learns that Shuichi comes here often by himself, especially when he feels homesick, because the flavors remind him of home. Mizuki smiles at his story and thanks him for taking her out. When she returns to the dorm, she moves quietly, assuming Izumi has already fallen asleep. To her surprise, he speaks up, saying he can smell food. Mizuki offers him the takeout she brought, which he accepts and starts eating. She takes this moment to wish him good luck with his high jump. Izumi can tell that she's worried about her brother's condition and how it's affecting him, so he reassures her that Shizuki's deal is only a secondary concern. His real motivation for training so hard is Makoto's challenge. Then, to her surprise, Izumi stands up and says he's still hungry even though he just ate. One day, Shizuki decides to visit Osaka High. From the clinic window, Hokuto notices him wandering around the school grounds. Shizuki has come to spy on Izumi, even going so far as to prepare dark clothing and sunglasses to conceal his identity. Shizuki looks around uncertainly, unsure where to go. At that moment, Hokuto slides his window open and calls out to him, offering his help. Flustered, Shizuki explains that he has a relative studying there. Hokuto studies him for a moment before quickly realizing that Shizuki is Mizuki's older brother. He invites Shizuki inside the clinic so he can meddle a little. He soon finds himself seated in the clinic with a cup of tea. Hokuto casually asks what Shizuki thinks of Osaka High. Shizuki admits that while there isn't anything particularly bad about the school, there also isn't anything especially good about it either. To his surprise, Hokuto seems agreeable. He comments that many of the students are rather free-spirited. Then, without directly naming her, he brings up Mizuki, remarking on how bold she is to attend this school just to chase after her idol. Hokuto says that Mizuki can easily be mistaken for a girl. At this, Shizuki abruptly spits out his tea and quickly excuses himself, not wanting to risk exposing Mizuki. At the track and field area, Mizuki is helping Izumi practice his high jump by recording his attempts on her tablet. Izumi leans in closer to check the footage, unconcerned by their proximity, but Mizuki suddenly becomes aware of it. She unexpectedly remembers their first kiss together and gets lost in thought. Sensing that something is off, Izumi moves even closer to check on her, which startles Mizuki so badly that she accidentally smacks him with her tablet. She steps backward only to collide with Makoto behind her. He looks furious at seeing her, but his anger quickly shifts toward Izumi, and he grabs him by the collar. Shizuki finally arrives at the track area, slightly out of breath. Makoto suddenly shoves Izumi to the ground. Makoto hurls insults, accusing Izumi of giving up on the sport too easily, even after making a recovery. Izumi remains composed, but there is unmistakable fire in his voice as he answers. He tells Makoto that he alone gets to decide how he continues this sport, and that resolve is something he found because of Mizuki. He adds that passing the spring preliminaries is only the first step in his career. A mocking smirk forms on Makoto's face as he says he'll be waiting to see if Izumi can actually back up his words before walking away. Izumi then suggests that they should head home. Mizuki brightens and offers him her hand. Izumi takes it, letting her pull him to his feet. Izumi asks what Mizuki plans to do if he fails to clear the jump. At first, Mizuki answers lightly that she would simply be dragged back to the States. But when Izumi presses her for her true answer, she admits that she wants to stay in Japan. Izumi tells her that she should stay if that is what she wants. Before she can respond, Shizuki declares sharply that Mizuki's future is not Izumi's decision to make. Shizuki insists that if Izumi truly wants Mizuki to remain in Japan, then he must clear the jump. Mizuki immediately defends Izumi, saying that he is already doing his best. In response, Shizuki coldly calls Izumi pathetic. Izumi doesn't argue back. Instead, when one of his teammates calls him to speak with the coach, he simply walks away. Shizuki watches him leave with clear disdain, muttering that Izumi isn't worthy of Mizuki's devotion. Furious, she shouts that she hates Shizuki, then turns and runs off, leaving Shizuki stunned behind her. He sinks to his knees, defeated, clearly shaken that Mizuki would react so strongly against him. Later, Mizuki waits outside the school gates with Yujiro. When Izumi comes out, Mizuki tries to apologize for Shizuki's behavior, but Izumi brushes it off, saying they can pretend the whole thing never happened if she gives him one of her shrimps for dinner. Mizuki's heart swells with affection as she watches his back. The day of the competition finally arrives. Izumi and Mizuki's friends are all present to support Izumi. Mizuki spots her brother and walks over to him. She thanks him for coming. After briefly greeting her friends, Shizuki smiles at Mizuki and waves her off. Before the event begins, Mizuki approaches Izumi to wish him good luck. She hands him a charm for luck, though Izumi points out that it is actually a charm for love. Mizuki freezes in embarrassment, insisting that she had bought what Senri recommended. Despite her mortification, Izumi smiles and decides to accept it. In the audience, Shizuki sits beside Shuichi and asks what kind of person Izumi really is. Instead of explaining, Shuichi tells him to simply watch and judge for himself. Soon the announcer calls Izumi's name. A murmur ripples through the crowd in surprise, since many hadn't expected him to compete. Even Makoto looks mildly amused. Izumi steps onto the track. The signal sounds and he sprints forward. Mizuki squeezes her hands together, silently praying. To everyone's shock, Izumi clears the bar cleanly. Shizuki slowly rises from his seat without a word and leaves the arena. Meanwhile, Mizuki meets Izumi on the field in tears to congratulate him. Overwhelmed with emotion, she even falls to the ground. Izumi, equally relieved, pulls her into a spontaneous hug. For a brief moment, they forget they are in public until someone calls out to them. When Izumi suggests they return to the benches, Mizuki can't stop grinning, since his form was beautiful. Makoto scoffs at their joy, then challenges Izumi to improve quickly so they can truly compete against each other. Instead of his usual indifference, Izumi actually accepts it positively. Later, as the group prepares to head back, Mizuki receives a message from Shizuki. He tells her to at least visit home during the holidays and wishes her good luck. As Shizuki is on his flight back to the States, he finds himself unable to hold back his tears. At the start of the new term, Mizuki reflects on the preliminaries. Izumi did make the final cut, but he is officially back in the high jump. One day, Mizuki and the other dorm residents gather near the entrance after a notice is posted announcing that the dorm will undergo renovations over the summer. Minami quickly appears to scold them for crowding the doorway, reminding everyone that the renovations are unavoidable and that they should start figuring out where they will stay. That evening at dinner, Mizuki is so distracted by the news that she absent-mindedly pokes at her food without eating. She even misses her mouth when she tries to feed herself. Izumi eventually hits her lightly on the head to snap her out of it, telling her to focus on her meal. Their friends across the table observe that Izumi is acting like a mother cat fussing over Mizuki. Embarrassed, Izumi abruptly announces that he is heading back to his room. As Mizuki announces that she will follow him, he immediately orders her to finish eating first, only reinforcing the mother cat image, much to everyone's amusement. After he leaves, the boys comment that Izumi has been different, in a good way, since Mizuki arrived. When Mizuki shyly asks what they mean, they explain that while Izumi was never a bad person, he used to be more distant and difficult to read. His aloofness often led to friction with Shuichi, but now he seems warmer and more approachable. They tell Mizuki that this change is likely because of her, which makes her blush deeply. Later that night, Shuichi stands nervously outside Mizuki and Izumi's room, trying to convince himself that inviting Mizuki to stay at his place for the summer is perfectly normal. His confidence crumbles, however, when he realizes there's a chance they might have to bathe at the same time, sending him into a full-blown panic. His loud internal meltdown echoes into the hallway, prompting an irritated Izumi to ask what his problem is. Shuichi is led in by Izumi, much to Mizuki's surprise. After gathering his courage, Shuichi finally invites Mizuki to stay at his home in Osaka during the renovations. At first, Mizuki thinks it's a wonderful idea until she remembers the risk of her secret being exposed. Reluctantly, she turns him down. Shuichi pretends to take it in stride, but the moment he steps into the hallway, he collapses in despair. Seeing Mizuki's hesitation, Izumi grows a little concerned. After some thought, he offers his own home as an alternative. He explains that they would still have to share his room, but since they've already been roommates all this time, it wouldn't bother him. Mizuki blushes at the suggestion. She admits that she would feel more comfortable staying with him than anywhere else, but asks for some time to think it over. That night, lying in bed, Mizuki wrestles with her decision before eventually giving up and deciding to sleep on it. Around 2 in the morning, Izumi stirs at the sound of movement beside him. He finds Mizuki suddenly sleepwalking into his bed. Before he can stop her, she curls up against him, snuggling close. Izumi panics internally at their position. In his head, he scolds Mizuki for being so unaware of her own sleeping habits. He tries to nudge her awake and tell her to return to her bed, but instead of moving, Mizuki only nestles closer. Seeing that Mizuki isn't going to wake up, Izumi gives up. Though flustered, he reluctantly allows himself to hold her against him, quietly aware that Mizuki is a girl as he awkwardly accepts their closeness. By morning, Mizuki wakes up feeling strangely warm and comfortable. The moment she fully opens her eyes and sees Izumi beside her, she jolts upright in shock. Calmly, he explains that she had sleepwalked into his bed during the night. Mizuki immediately panics since she removed her chest binder to sleep and fears she might have been discovered. To cover it up, she nervously insists that this kind of thing happens all the time between guys. Izumi, sensing her distress, plays along and agrees without pushing further. As Mizuki hurriedly gets ready for the day, Izumi moves to his desk, only then realizing how exhausted he is. Because of their position last night, he barely slept at all. Later at school, Mizuki desperately tries to convince Hakuto to let her stay at his place for 2 weeks, even promising to handle all the housework. Hakuto, however, flatly refuses, saying he has a summer getaway planned. Before Mizuki can protest further, Ryo suddenly storms into the clinic looking furious. She scolds Hakuto for forgetting his promise to help out at the Hayama boarding house over the summer. Minami enters shortly after, and Mizuki is shocked when he casually calls Hakuto uncle. She quickly realizes that the three of them are related and that Ryo, despite being younger than Minami, is technically his aunt. Minami then joins Ryo in reminding Hakuto about his commitment to the boarding house. Hakuto stubbornly refuses, insisting he already made beach plans. Minami tells him that Ayo, his mother, had already predicted his reluctance and is already making her way to the school to pick him up. The moment he tries to escape, Ayo appears right at the door. Ayo immediately confronts him, demanding the truth. When Hakuto admits he planned a summer vacation instead of helping her business, she dramatically accuses him of breaking his promise to keep the season free. Desperate to get out of the situation, Hakuto blurts out that he has a willing pretty boy helper, ready to take his place, leaving Mizuki to realize that he is talking about her. Ayo immediately zeroes in on Mizuki, studying her closely. Not realizing that Mizuki is actually a girl, she decides that Mizuki's delicate features make her the perfect candidate to help at the Hayama boarding house. When Ayo turns back to Hakuto to discuss it further, she finds that he has already bolted out of the clinic. Back at the dorm, Mizuki tells Izumi and Shuichi about the summer job she just got at the Hayama boarding house. Izumi decides on the spot that he will join her, since he had already been planning to get a part-time job anyway. Shuichi quickly follows suit, insisting he'll work there too. Internally, he resolves that he cannot leave Izumi and Mizuki alone together for an entire summer. During the summer, Mizuki, Izumi, and Shuichi begin working at the boarding house as planned. During one of their shifts, Ayo thanks Mizuki for bringing in extra help, explaining that she had only managed to hire 2 college students before Mizuki came along. Mizuki replies that the timing worked out perfectly because of the dorm renovations. Takami gets scolded for flirting with guests while on duty, so he sheepishly promises to behave on the clock. Not long after, he notices Mizuki chatting with Mayumi and suddenly seems to get an idea. After the mealtime rush, the staff start cleaning up. Izumi spots Takami standing uncomfortably close to Mizuki, who doesn't seem to notice anything unusual. Feeling uneasy, Izumi tells Mizuki to come help him in her assigned area instead. Mizuki immediately follows him and proudly shows off a table napkin she managed to fold neatly. She then suddenly remembers that she needs to feed Yujiro, and Takami quickly offers to accompany her. As Mizuki and Takami head outside together, Shuichi grows uneasy about how friendly Takami is being with her. Ayo assumes Mizuki will be safe since she still believes Mizuki is a boy, but Shuichi decides to keep a closer eye on them anyway. While feeding Yujiro, Takami learns that Mizuki and the others were allowed to bring the dog along so that someone could take care of him. Takami then casually asks Mizuki whether Shuichi or Izumi is her boyfriend. Mizuki panics at the question and hurriedly insists that she is a guy, but Takami clearly doesn't believe her. Instead, he assumes that Ayo is simply pretending that Mizuki is a boy to protect her. Just then, Shuichi calls out for Mizuki. Seizing the opportunity, Mizuki loudly declares again that she is a guy and rushes towards Shuichi, leaving Takami chuckling at what he sees as her attempt to hide her true gender. As Mizuki and Shuichi head back to the kitchen together, Mizuki notices that Shuichi seems irritated about something. Instead of pushing for an explanation, she excuses herself to go change because of how sweaty she is. When Mizuki changes in her room, she struggles to zip up her binder and starts worrying that she might have gained weight because of Ayo's delicious cooking. Back in the kitchen, Shuichi vents to Izumi about Takami. He insists that Takami is being a creep toward Mizuki and that it's making him uneasy. Izumi flatly replies that it isn't their business, which shocks Shuichi. He immediately suspects that Izumi is hiding something, especially since they are roommates at the boarding house. Izumi tries to calm him down, surprised that Shuichi is genuinely upset about the room arrangements. Before he can say much, Takami walks into the kitchen and casually remarks that all three of them are very close. He flashes Izumi a peculiar smile before leaving, making Izumi wonder whether Takami is plotting something. Later that evening, Izumi and Mizuki are resting in their shared room. Izumi hesitantly asks if Mizuki is having any trouble with anything. The question confuses her, and realizing she truly seems unaware of any issue, he quickly tells her to forget he asked. The next morning, Mizuki is at the front desk checking the guest list for the day. She suddenly freezes when she spots a familiar name. Shuichi, who is on bed making duty, tries to get information on the number of guests they have, not noticing the troubled expression on her face. A little later, Makoto arrives at the boarding house with his two younger sisters. Mizuki and her friends greet them, though Shuichi and Mizuki wear clearly strained smiles. Makoto immediately recognizes them and complains about the idea of being served food by them throughout his stay. Aya reassures Makoto that she will personally handle all of his meals. Strangely, this makes Makoto blush, and he explains that there has been a change in plans, as his parents were originally supposed to come, but their temple got too busy, so he is taking their place instead. The trio is surprised to learn that Makoto's family owns a temple. Makoto's sister, Tamami, is about to complain until she suddenly notices Izumi. She immediately fangirls, grabbing his hand and shaking it excitedly while gushing about him. She introduces herself, which instantly makes Mizuki uneasy. Flustered, Makoto quickly drags her away. Shuichi mutters that honestly, Makoto seems exactly like the type of person who would have a sister like Tamami. Just then, Shuichi feels a tug on his pants and looks down to see that Makoto has left his youngest sister, Kiyomi, standing beside him. Mizuki bends down to talk to Kiyomi, and following her lead, Shuichi tries to play nice, cheerfully asking how old she is. Kiyomi blankly answers that she is 3, then sticks 2 of her fingers straight up Shuichi's nose while trying to show her age. Shuichi immediately flies into a rage, and Mizuki quickly calls for Izumi to restrain him before he can do anything to Kiyomi. Seeing that Izumi has Shuichi firmly under control, Mizuki picks Kiyomi up and carries her to Makoto's room. She knocks on the door, and when she is told to come in, she is shocked to find Tamami in the middle of changing. Mizuki quickly apologizes and steps back out, but Tamami opens the door again wearing a swimsuit and tells her it's fine to come in. They end up spending time together in the room. Tamami explains that she had to babe Makoto to bring her along because she normally isn't allowed to hang out freely by herself, and she had wanted to go to the beach. When Mizuki learns that Tamami is only in middle school, she can't help but feel a pang of jealousy over how mature and developed Tamami looks for her age. Tamami soon shifts the conversation back to Izumi, eagerly gushing about him once more. She begins questioning Mizuki about whether Izumi has a girlfriend, and when Mizuki confirms that he doesn't, Tamami confidently declares that she will win his heart due to how hot she looks. The announcement leaves Mizuki visibly stunned. One afternoon during lunch, Mizuki excuses herself early without finishing her meal. Shuichi and Ayo immediately question her sudden loss of appetite, but Mizuki brushes it off, claiming she simply isn't very hungry. What she doesn't tell them is that she's afraid of gaining weight. Her chest binder has been feeling tighter lately, and it's starting to worry her. As she passes by the kitchen, she spots Izumi working and considers offering to help. Before she can step inside, Tamami suddenly runs up and hugs Izumi from behind. Izumi stiffens and tries to pry her arms off, but Tamami refuses to let go, shamelessly continuing to flirt with him. Mizuki freezes in the doorway, watching the scene unfold. She's so focused on them that she doesn't notice Takami calling her name until he places a hand on her shoulder. Takami asks if she can help him with something, and Mizuki starts to agree, only for a wave of dizziness to hit her, causing her to fall back until her vision blackens. Izumi rushes over almost instantly, scooping Mizuki into his arms and sharply warning Takami not to touch her. As he carries her away, Takami watches them carefully, a smirk never leaving his face. Moments later, Mizuki slowly regains consciousness. She sees Izumi nearby and realizes she must have fainted because her binder was too tight. Izumi gently cups her face and presses a hand to her forehead, checking her temperature to see if she is ill. He tells her firmly that she's resting for the day and that he'll handle her workload. As he starts to pull away, something inside Mizuki panics. Without thinking, she grabs the corner of his shirt. Realizing what she's done, Mizuki quickly withdraws her hand, but Izumi leans closer instead and quietly asks if she wants him to stay. Flustered but honest, she gives a small yes. Izumi drapes a blanket over her and promises to remain by her side until she falls asleep. As he sits by her bed, Mizuki smiles softly and nestles deeper into her bed, comforted by his presence. Outside their room, Shuichi debates whether to check in on her. He wants to make sure she's okay but worries about being intrusive. Ayo eventually notices him panicking and irritated, orders him to at least make himself useful by cleaning the yard. By sunset, Mizuki wakes up again. The room is quiet, and Izumi is no longer there. She notices how much she had been sweating in her sleep and decides to take a bath. After her shower, Mizuki immediately feels refreshed, relieved to be free from the tightness of her binder. She pinches the side of her stomach, realizing she may have gained a little weight after all. Deciding to relax a bit longer, she slips into the bathtub. Just then, she hears Shuichi enter the changing area. Panicking, she quickly turns around so that her back faces the door as it slides open. Shuichi freezes the moment he steps inside. Too stunned to react properly, he lets the door slide shut again. Outside, he tries desperately to sort out his thoughts. He absolutely did not expect to see Mizuki in the bath. A reckless part of his brain argues that this might be the perfect chance to bathe together since there's technically nothing strange about two guys sharing a bath. Determined, he starts marching back toward the bathing area, only for his imagination to betray him with an overly vivid mental image of Mizuki. Inside, Mizuki hears something fall to the floor. Concerned, she calls out to Shuichi. When he doesn't respond, she cautiously peeks out only to find him collapsed on the ground with a nosebleed. Alarmed, she quickly grabs a towel and places it over his eyes as a precaution. Then she hurriedly dresses so she can properly help him. The next day, Shuichi remains mortified about the entire incident, sulking around to the point that even Ayo finds him irritating. Meanwhile, Mizuki is getting ready when she spots Izumi outside stretching in preparation for training. She calls out to him from the window, and he explains that he needs to stay ready for the next tournament. Mizuki smiles softly as she watches him until Tamami suddenly runs up and tries to convince Izumi to go to the beach with her that morning. Izumi does his best to ignore her persistence, but Tamami soon notices Mizuki watching from the window and greets her enthusiastically. She loudly complains that Izumi refuses to spend time with her, leaving Mizuki unsure how to respond. Fortunately, Takami appears and strikes up a conversation with Mizuki, checking on her since she fainted the day before. Hearing Takami's voice, Izumi glances up toward the window. He sees Mizuki talking with him and notices the smug look Takami deliberately sends his way. Izumi's expression darkens at the sight. Takami and Mizuki leave the room to begin the day, and he casually invites her to join him on a supply run later. When she agrees, he leaves her to finish her work. Mizuki is shocked when a hand covers her eyes, but it turns out to be Makoto. He is curious about Takami since Mizuki seems close to him. He had assumed Mizuki would constantly be with Izumi, though Mizuki weakly argues that they simply have different sets of tasks. Makoto is aware that Tamami's meddling attitude is partially at fault, but he also knows Mizuki would not let that stop her from standing next to Izumi. He admits that he actually admires that part of her. Mizuki is surprised that Makoto is trying to cheer her up, which prompts him to claim that he is a nice guy. Mizuki teasingly agrees and points out that he has a weird obsession with Izumi as well, which makes him angrily shout that he is into girls. Returning to a calmer tone, he tells Mizuki that he does not like Takami's vibe. A little later, Mizuki returns from the supply run with Takami, her thoughts disagreeing with Makoto, because she is convinced that Takami is actually nice. As they work, Ayo gives her and Izumi a break, so Mizuki decides to get them some drinks. Tamami beats her to it, offering Izumi one first. Takami notices Mizuki's longing look at Izumi, so he offers her a drink and suggests they spend their break together. He opens a can of peach juice for her, and she accepts it, allowing herself a small moment of joy as she reassures herself that Takami is a good guy for looking after her. As they chat, Izumi watches them while Tamami continues trying to pull him away from work. Later that evening, Ayo announces that she will allow them a day to go to the beach and enjoy themselves. She says it would be a waste to come all this way without experiencing the beach before school starts up again. She also adds that she bought a swimsuit and wants to wear it. When they retire to their rooms, Mizuki is all smiles as she expresses her excitement about going to the beach. Izumi, however, seems concerned and asks if Takami has been doing anything strange around her. Mizuki immediately becomes defensive and tries to justify Takami's actions, claiming it is normal and that he is just being friendly. She then argues that Izumi has no right to lecture her since he has been getting touchy with Tamami as well. Realizing what she just said, Mizuki announces that she will take a shower and slams the door behind her, leaving Izumi frustrated over their argument. Mizuki leans against their door, realizing she may have crossed the line. There is no possible way they could ever be lovers, so she has no right to feel jealous. And she notices something. She glances down at her chest and realizes her binder is not tight because she gained weight, but because her chest is developing. Joy washes over her, followed quickly by dread. The next day, Shuichi is overly excited to be at the beach. He immediately questions why Mizuki is wearing a sweater. She claims she is not really in the mood to swim, but that just being at the beach is enough to make her happy. Soon after, Mayumi and Ayo arrive, and Shuichi and Mizuki quickly shower them with compliments. Shuichi teases Ayo about her sun hat giving away her age, which earns him a hit. The girls and Yujiro rush toward the ocean, and everyone except Mizuki begins enjoying the water since she cannot risk exposing herself. She ends up watching them from the shore, feeling left out. After a while, Shuichi returns to shore, complaining that he is hungry, so Ayo offers to go buy food when she realizes that it's already lunchtime. Makoto approaches, looking for Tamami, but Shuichi says he has not seen her. Makoto decides to leave Kiyomi with Shuichi while he goes to search for Tamami. Shuichi tries to get the others to help him, but they have already dozed off on their beach blanket. Meanwhile, Mizuki spots Izumi walking back toward the shore. She realizes they have not really talked since the night before. She calls out to him, intending to apologize, but Izumi begins to say something as well. He cannot finish because Tamami suddenly runs over and immediately starts clinging to him. Mizuki steps back to walk away, but Tamami walks up to her and asks if the color of her bathing suit looks alright. Mizuki realizes Tamami is just like any other girl and tells her that Izumi would not mind a girl wearing bright colors. The comment brightens Tamami's mood and she thanks Mizuki before hurrying back to Izumi. Mizuki watches them, realizing she cannot bring herself to hate Tamami. Back at their spot on the shore, Shuichi cannot help feeling miserable. He is stuck watching Yujiro and Kiyomi and cannot leave them unattended. So he resigns himself to his fate as Kiyomi uses him as part of her sandcastle. Meanwhile, Mizuki tries to find everyone. She wanders farther down the beach and somehow ends up lost. Two men recognize her as a girl and immediately begin hitting on her. She ignores them and tries to go the other direction, but they grow forceful, refusing to let her leave. Just then, Izumi is heading down the same path. He suddenly spots Mizuki being held back by unfamiliar men. He immediately runs toward them, but Takami reaches Mizuki first and pulls her away from the men. Izumi slows to a stop, frozen in place as he watches Takami fuss over her and lightly scold her for looking like easy prey. Shuichi and Kiyomi soon come over as well, calling them to lunch since Ayo has returned. They begin walking back together as a group while Izumi remains where he is, staring at them as they leave. Takami notices him and sends him a triumphant look, which only irritates Izumi further. He turns and walks off in another direction. Tamami quickly follows after him, and only then do Shuichi and Mizuki realize he was there. They wonder why he is ignoring them, and Takami casually remarks that Izumi seems to be enjoying himself with Tamami, so it's best to leave them alone. Later that evening, Ayo brings out watermelon for the staff, instructing them to distribute slices to the guests before allowing themselves to eat some. She is changed into a yukata to enjoy the summer evening, and Mizuki asks if she can take a few slices outside. Mizuki finds Izumi with Yujiro and offers him some watermelon. When he agrees to eat with her, she sits down beside him and starts rambling about watermelon. As Izumi quietly eats, Mizuki realizes she has been talking non-stop and quickly apologizes. Izumi surprises her by apologizing as well for getting worked up over Takami. They share a small smile as their friendship is restored. After finishing the watermelon, Mizuki leaves to return the plate, leaving Izumi alone with his thoughts. He knows he has to protect her, but he does not fully understand where his concern for her comes from. Mizuki is trying to live as a boy and he already knows her secret. Yet he continues helping her hide it, even keeping the fact that he knows she is female from her. He questions his own motives regarding Mizuki, but as he struggles to sort through his feelings, Takami suddenly approaches him, clearly wanting to have a serious conversation. That evening, Takami tells Izumi that he has noticed he has been acting like Mizuki's guardian. Because of that, he feels it is only proper to ask for permission to date Mizuki, admitting his relief that Izumi is not dating her. Izumi cautiously continues referring to Mizuki as a male and says that Mizuki is free to date anyone she wants, but it cannot be Takami. Takami pushes further and asks whether Izumi is saying that as Mizuki's guardian or because he also has feelings for Mizuki. Back inside, Tamami approaches Mizuki, frustrated that despite all her efforts, Izumi still is not paying attention to her. She has tried everything she thinks a boy would like and wants to know if she isn't attractive to Mizuki. She says she has decided to be more direct about her feelings and plans to confess to him. She asks for Mizuki's opinion because Izumi apparently admitted that Mizuki is the only person he can tolerate for long periods of time. That comment makes Mizuki unexpectedly giddy, which only confuses Tamami. After Tamami leaves, Mizuki cheerfully continues her chores. However, she begins to consider confessing as well. She knows she is in love with Izumi, but she wonders if she would have felt the same way if she had met him as a girl. At the same time, she realizes that it is because of her disguise that she was able to build the relationship they have now. The next morning, Mizuki and Shuichi decide to take a break together and run into Makoto and Kiyomi. Makoto deposits Kiyomi into Mizuki's arms and rushes off, saying he has a date with a girl. Deciding to look after her, Mizuki and Shuichi set up an inflatable pool near Yujiro's doghouse so Kiyomi can play in the water. Shuichi even tries to teach her how to make a water gun with her hands. Mizuki watches them and realizes how caring Shuichi can be, despite his constant complaining. Kiyomi suddenly grabs the hose and sprays Shuichi with it. Mizuki bursts into laughter, which only irritates him further. Meanwhile, on the other side of the resort, Izumi is watering plants when he overhears Takami talking with some of his friends. His friends seem to be making fun of him, since Takami has a tendency to switch girls every year. Izumi finds his habits disgusting. he grows even more irritated as Takami begins describing his new prey. Izumi walks over to the porch where Mizuki and the others are and immediately drapes a towel over her, scolding her for playing with water when she had only just recovered. Mizuki argues that the sun is hot today, so she should be fine, but Izumi insists that she dry herself properly. She eventually gives in and retreats to their room to change. However, in the middle of changing, Ayo walks in and discovers that Mizuki has been a girl the entire time. Mizuki quickly covers herself and begs Ayo not to reveal her secret. Ayo calmly helps her cover up and tells her to finish dressing so they can talk. Once they settle down, Mizuki tells Ayo her story and even admits that Hakuto knows about her true gender and her reasons. Ayo voices her concerns about Mizuki's choices and points out that her parents likely would not approve if they found out. Still, Mizuki insists that she truly wants to be with Izumi and has no intention of going home yet. Her answer seems to please Ayo, who even praises her determination in pursuing the boy she likes. She says that while she spoke earlier as a parent, as a woman she feels proud of how far Mizuki is willing to go for Izumi. Ayo even comments that Mizuki's situation would make a compelling drama one day. She understands that many young girls would relate to such a pursuit of love. Then her tone becomes more serious. She warns Mizuki to remain cautious because she is still a girl. Eventually, she will not be able to hide her chest, and nothing will truly move forward with Izumi if she continues pretending to be a boy. Later that evening, as she and Izumi prepare to sleep, Mizuki suddenly asks if he thinks she is too girly. Izumi is startled by the question and wonders if Takami said something to her, but Mizuki denies it and decides to drop the conversation. Izumi can tell something is bothering her, so he tells her that Mizuki should simply be herself. If she suddenly started acting like Shuichi, it would only be strange. The mental image of herself speaking like Shuichi makes Mizuki choke with laughter. Izumi reminds her not to overthink small things since they have work the next day. As she drifts off to sleep, Mizuki quietly wonders whether she is truly satisfied with the relationship she currently has with Izumi. The next morning, Shuichi complains while shelling beans with Makoto's family and asks Makoto what happened to the hot date he had been bragging about. Tamami chimes in that the girl dumped him, which immediately sparks an argument between the two of them. Shuichi ignores their bickering and shifts his attention to Kiyomi beside him. Even Izumi ends up complimenting Kiyomi. Makoto then leans over and quietly asks Izumi whether it is really okay for Mizuki to be alone with Takami, since the two of them drove off earlier. Izumi tries to act nonchalant, but Makoto can tell that he cares far more than he is letting on. Later that afternoon, Ayo begins to worry when Mizuki and Takami still have not returned. Mayumi mentions that they called earlier to say the engine stalled and that they might be 1 to 2 hours late. Izumi suddenly walks off without explanation, leaving Shuichi confused. Ayo, meanwhile, begins to feel uneasy about Takami. With Mizuki, Takami suddenly pulls the car to a stop, confusing her. He tells her that he knows about her feelings for Izumi, but that Izumi only sees her as a friend. Mizuki blushes, embarrassed that her unrequited feelings are so obvious. Takami casually tells her that she should just like him instead, promising that he would not break her heart. Mizuki begins to worry that Takami sees her as a girl and quickly insists that she is male. However, Takami suddenly leans over her seat, trapping her in place. Fear rises within her as she tries to push him away, but he blocks every possible escape, pinning her against the seat. Before he can go any further, Izumi suddenly opens the door, drags Takami out of the car, and punches him in the face. Mizuki does not wait. She bolts from the car and runs into the woods. It is only when Izumi finally catches her and she screams that she is scared that he realizes how deeply shaken she is. He calls her by name and pulls her into his chest, repeatedly telling her that she is safe and that it is only him. After a few moments, overwhelmed by panic, Mizuki faints. Izumi holds her close for a brief second before lifting her onto his back so he can carry her home. During the trip back, he struggles to find a signal on his phone since they are lost. Izumi suddenly loses his balance and falls down the cliff. Mizuki wakes up shortly after, confused about her surroundings. The last thing she clearly remembers is Takami trying to take advantage of her. Izumi returns to her side and explains what happened. When Mizuki tries to stand, a sharp pain shoots through her foot, and they notice it has already begun to swell due to a sprain. As Izumi starts treating her injury, Mizuki remembers that it was Izumi who saved her earlier. Izumi apologizes for being careless, but Mizuki shifts the blame onto herself. She feels that if she had listened to him from the beginning and had stayed away from Takami, all of this could have been avoided. Izumi tells her to stop blaming herself because it will not improve their situation. He flicks her forehead lightly to snap her out of it and reassures her that she will be fine. He even mentions that he found fresh spring water nearby. Meanwhile, Takami arrives back at the boarding house and is greeted by Ayo, who teases him about his bruise and about trying to hit on a boy. Takami is visibly shocked to learn that Mizuki is supposedly male, which makes Ayo realize that his advances did not go very far. She continues the act by mentioning that Mizuki attends an all-boys school and subtly tries to get Takami to reveal where Mizuki and Izumi are. Takami grows confused, saying he assumed they had already arrived ahead of him, which surprises Ayo as well. Back with Mizuki, since she is unable to climb with her injured foot, they decide to wait until someone finds them. Mizuki begins apologizing again, admitting she was terrified and calling her earlier situation pathetic. Izumi sits beside her and tries to comfort her. When he touches her forehead, he notices she is developing a fever. He tells her she can lean on him if she feels tired. Mizuki apologizes once more but thanks him, saying that even such a small gesture helps her greatly. At the boarding house, the group realizes it is getting very late. Ayo tells everyone that if they do not return by morning, they will organize a search party. Shuichi grows impatient and insists on taking the car himself to start searching for them immediately. Meanwhile, Mizuki's fever worsens and she begins to grow delirious. Filled with worry, Izumi tells her to stay where she is while he climbs up to look for help. However, Mizuki clings to him and begs him not to leave. Before she can say anything more, she faints again from exhaustion. Izumi panics, unsure of what to do until he remembers the spring he found earlier. He tears the sleeve of his shirt, dampens it with water, and keeps some water in his mouth as well. He kneels beside Mizuki and lets her drink from his lips, pressing them gently to hers. Mizuki is unaware of what is happening, but she can clearly hear Izumi's heartbeat. Meanwhile, Izumi holds her close and silently promises never to leave her side. After some time, Izumi drifts off as well, only to wake at the sound of Yujiro barking and Shuichi shouting. When he looks up, he sees Shuichi above the cliff from where they fell with a wide grin. Izumi exhales in relief and mildly complains that they took long enough to find them. The next morning, Mizuki is back on her feet, though she still struggles to walk properly. Ayo stops her in the hallway to check if her fever has gone down. Satisfied with her condition, she informs Mizuki that Takami has already left the boarding house. Ayo also tells her that she should thank and apologize to her friends, especially Izumi, who had been holding her so protectively while she was unconscious. After Ayo leaves, Mizuki feels her face heat up. She vaguely remembers Izumi holding her and him kissing her, but she assumes it was just a fever dream. She then notices Izumi getting ready for work. He checks on her condition and reminds her that they will be heading back to the dorms the following day. Before he can leave, Mizuki grips the corner of his shirt and properly thanks him for saving her and taking care of her. Izumi remains facing the other direction to hide his blush as he walks off, and Shuichi thankfully appears to distract Mizuki. The next day, the three of them say goodbye to Ayo and Mayumi, who thank them for helping out over the summer. Makoto notices they are leaving, and he and Shuichi end up arguing one last time before their departure. They realize Tamami is not there. Makoto mentions that she came to their room in tears the previous night and has not come out since. Mizuki understands that Tamami must have confessed and that Izumi likely turned her down. Shuichi says goodbye to Kiyomi, admitting that he has grown fond of her. Kiyomi suddenly realizes she will not see him again and grabs a fistful of his hair, crying loudly. Ayo teases Shuichi, pointing out how attached Kiyomi has become to him. To calm her down, Shuichi gives Kiyomi his wristband and makes her promise to take care of it until they meet again. Izumi and Mizuki watch the exchange with soft smiles. Soon, the three of them promise to return someday, next time as guests. One evening, Minami announces that Osaka High School will soon be holding its school festival. Everyone except Izumi and Mizuki bursts into cheers, which surprises Mizuki. Shuichi explains that their school festivals are a big deal. For the sake of the transferees and freshmen, Minami explains that the Osaka School Festival lasts 3 days, with each day featuring different sports events, and on the final day, the school is open to the public. Mizuki finds herself growing excited, but Minami continues by explaining that at their school, the dorms are pitted against one another, which surprises her even more. He then explains how the dorms are divided. Osaka High has 3 dorms. Dorm 1 focuses on sports, Dorm 3 on the arts, and Dorm 2 consists of students who excel in both sports and the arts. To fire everyone up, Minami adds that the winning dorm usually receives special privileges. Sometimes it is better meals, and on some occasions even prize money. Dorm 2 erupts in cheers at the mention of a possible cash prize, and Minami comments that they might actually have a shot at winning this year. Before he can continue, Megumi, the head of Dorm 1, suddenly appears with several karate club members. He boldly announces that Dorm 1 will be the victor of the school festival. Mizuki is baffled, so Izumi quietly explains who Megumi is. Megumi and Minami begin arguing over which dorm will win. Mizuki notices that 2 club members standing beside Megumi carry a particularly intimidating presence. Izumi and Shuichi tell her that they are well-known and feared students named Takashi and the vice president, Itsuki. Mizuki studies Itsuki's face and does not feel intimidated at first, but when he notices her staring and sends her a smile, she quickly looks away. Megumi confidently declares once more that Dorm 1 will win before leaving with his group. Minami sighs and tells everyone not to let Dorm 1's theatrics distract them. saying it was merely a show of confidence. Getting back on track, he reminds the dorm that victory would mean improved living conditions. Before dismissing them, he adds that there will also be the Osaka Beauty Contest and that anyone can nominate themselves or a friend. He winks in Mizuki's direction, causing her to grow flustered. As they leave the dorm mess hall, Mizuki expresses her amazement at how seriously everyone is taking the school festival. Kyogo and Shinji say that it is completely normal and share their excitement about the third day of the festival, when girls from other schools will be allowed to attend. They then ask Mizuki if she plans to enter the beauty competition, mentioning that Senri won last year. Mizuki immediately rejects the idea. As Mizuki and Izumi head back to their dorm, Shuichi lingers behind, unable to stop himself from imagining Mizuki in girls' clothing. In his mind, she would look unbelievably cute. His thoughts abruptly halt when Taiki comments that Shuichi's aura has turned pink and asks if he has fallen in love. Back in the dorm room, Mizuki asks Izumi about the events scheduled for the first day. Izumi lists them from memory and then specifically tells her not to participate in the chicken fight. When Mizuki asks why, Izumi begins scolding her, only to realize he does not actually know what a chicken fight is. Curious, Mizuki presses him for details, but Izumi refuses to explain further. Feeling playful, Mizuki suddenly tickles him from behind. Startled, Izumi grabs her hands and accidentally pulls her against his back. The sudden closeness makes them both freeze. After a brief moment, Izumi awkwardly lets go and tells her to go to bed. When they settle into their respective beds, their faces are still flush. Mizuki finds herself thinking back to what happened over the summer. She remembers how Izumi held her protectively and even recalls dreaming about him kissing her. Her thoughts drift to their first kiss, and she can clearly remember how his lips felt against hers. At first, the memory makes her panic, but the feeling slowly shifts into comfort. She realizes that she experienced a side of Izumi that no one else has yet. With that thought, she comes to terms with how deeply she loves him. Meanwhile, in his own bed, Izumi lies awake, quietly contemplating his feelings for Mizuki. The next day, Izumi, Mizuki, and Shuichi are selected to participate in the chicken fight, much to Izumi's annoyance. Mizuki, however, is confident they can win because of her light weight. Later, Senri approaches Mizuki and encourages her to join the beauty pageant with him so they can aim for first place and runner-up together. Although Mizuki refuses again, Minami suddenly enters the classroom and urges her to participate, reminding her of the cash prize. The other boys quickly become fired up at the prospect of winning and begin pleading with Mizuki to join. Since all the boys seem to agree that she should join, Minami makes the decision for her. Shuichi finds himself getting excited and tries his best to hide it. After calming everyone down, Minami announces that they will be holding the Relay of Hell again this year. Minami adds that he will personally select the runners to keep their identities a secret. However, before he can continue, Megumi and 3 of his trusted members suddenly appear. Megumi repeats what he declared the previous night but adds a new condition. If Dorm 1 wins, Minami must cut all of his hair. This prompts Senri to mock Dorm 1, saying they lose the beauty pageant every year. Taking the challenge seriously, Megumi reveals that they now have a new member, a freshman named Shotaro. When Shotaro steps forward, everyone is stunned by how cute he looks, especially compared to the overly masculine members of Dorm 1. Megumi then turns his attention to Mizuki, saying he has heard rumors about her leg strength. However, he claims he does not believe them because she looks too girly. Irritated, Mizuki snaps back and tells him not to underestimate her, declaring that she will also compete in the chicken fight. Megumi mocks her further and announces that he will join the event as well so he can personally defeat her. The two glare at each other, neither willing to back down. After classes, Mizuki tells Hakuto about joining the chicken fight. Though he expresses uncertainty about her decision, he nonetheless wishes her luck. Soon, Ayo arrives and is pleased to see Mizuki there. Ayo then hands Mizuki a new vest to replace the one that has become too tight. When she learns about the beauty pageant, Ayo mentions that Minami also participated in it during his freshman year. She even shows Mizuki a photo of Minami dressed in female clothing and a wig. When Mizuki leaves the infirmary, she spots Minami by the benches and considers approaching him. However, after noticing that he looks troubled, she decides against it. Finally, on the day of the school festival, Mizuki is the most energetic among all of them. She is assigned to volleyball, while Shuichi and Izumi are playing basketball. People from Dorm 1 spy on her, not believing she is a real threat. Mizuki and the others watch Shuichi and Izumi's game, and once Izumi scores, she loudly cheers him on. However, her teammates call her attention because they also have to head to their court for their volleyball match. At their court, they begin stretching and discussing the basketball game. Shuichi is always playing his best, but they did not expect Izumi to be good at basketball as well. They assume it must be because of his jumping ability, which Mizuki enthusiastically agrees with. They notice how easily Mizuki perks up at the mention of Izumi, and she lets a goofy smile rest on her face. The team's mood lifts even more when they hear that they won the basketball match. They soon notice Minami and approach him to share the good news, but Minami isn't happy. He reveals that they are actually in last place overall. Apparently, Dorm 1 had all its members temporarily quit their clubs so they could compete in the sports they excel at. Kyogo comments that they are playing dirty, but Megumi and his club suddenly burst in and claim that it is just a strategy. Mizuki lets her anger flare as she hurls insults at Megumi for cheating. Megumi angrily argues back, stating that nothing in the rules says they cannot do what they just did. Megumi promises to obliterate her in the chicken fight and turns to leave. The rest of the club follows, but Itsuki lingers behind to smile at her before rejoining his group. Mizuki is confused, and Minami warns her not to get involved with Itsuki. He tells her that there are rumors he once dislocated someone's arms without a second thought. Mizuki forces herself to calm down and decides to redirect her pent-up frustration into the upcoming volleyball match. She manages to fire up her teammates, but during the first round against Dorm 3, they lose. Suddenly, a red carpet rolls in and Maso, the leader of Dorm 3, comes walking in. He focuses on Mizuki and offers to help her up while introducing himself as Oscar and apologizing for his dorm's rough behavior. He tilts Mizuki's chin so he can get a better look at her features and decides that Mizuki is better suited for their dorm. Mizuki refuses, and suddenly Shuichi's shoe makes contact with Maso's head. Shuichi insults him for hiding his real name. Mizuki questions the name Oscar, and to avoid further embarrassment, Maso flees dramatically, accidentally hitting his head on the way out. Mizuki is confused about what just happened, so Shuichi fills her in. Maso is very popular and the president of the theater club. Based on his description, Mizuki gets the impression that he is an oddball. During their lunch break, Mizuki and the rest are in low spirits because they are currently in last place. Minami approaches them and tells them not to let their score crush their spirits just yet. Mizuki notices that his uniform has changed and admits that he looks cool. Minami explains that the dorm leaders are all competing in the cheering competition and have to wear white. Mizuki's friends add that the faculty will decide the winner since the students would just vote for their own dorm. Before Minami leaves, he tells Mizuki to win the 500-meter relay race, stating that it will give them significant leverage in the score. Shocked by such a big responsibility, Mizuki promises to do her best in the race. After a few moments, they all gather to watch the cheering competition. All the dorm leaders deliver their cheers with as much conviction as possible, but the one who stands out the most is Minami. When it comes to scoring, the faculty also gives him the highest points, allowing Dorm 2 to overtake Dorm 3 and move closer to beating Dorm 1. The members of Dorm 2 cheer, and Mizuki even hugs Izumi in excitement. She quickly realizes her mistake and apologizes, but Izumi pulls her back in firmly before letting her go, telling her it was payback for last time. As he walks away, Shuichi lets his jealousy flare and drags Mizuki toward the 500-meter relay. During the relay, Shuichi is not fast enough, but Mizuki makes up for his lack of speed during her leg of the race and outruns everyone, allowing Dorm 2 to come out on top. She reunites with her friends on the field, who congratulate her, but Izumi notices that she accidentally brought the flag with her. She goes to return it, but the students tell her to bring it to the storeroom instead. On her way there, Mizuki spots Minami. She's about to greet him, but notices that he is with a girl. She keeps herself hidden as she observes them. The girl looks like she could be his girlfriend, but suddenly she pulls away from him, and Minami looks visibly hurt by her actions. Mizuki walks away thinking about the girl. She looked like she was crying and was noticeably older than they were. She quickly shakes the thought away because it is none of her business. She runs toward the storeroom, not noticing a group of people from Dorm 1 watching her. After the cheering event, Minami gathers the students of Dorm 2 for one last pep talk before the chicken fight. Soon, everyone gathers on the field. Mizuki feels a little nervous because she had assumed the chicken fight was simply a race, but it turns out to be something completely different. When the signal is given, the match begins. Despite her earlier nerves, Mizuki and her team quickly maneuver around the field and manage to steal several bandanas. Mizuki keeps scanning the crowd for Megumi, not noticing another team approaching them. The opposing rider attacks. Mizuki blocks the first strike, but the rider immediately pushes forward again with the other arm, and this time Mizuki is knocked off balance. Everything seems to move in slow motion for Shuichi and Izumi as they dive for her. All three of them end up in the medical tent afterward, with Izumi and Shuichi being teased by Hakuto for getting injured while protecting Mizuki. Mizuki feels responsible for their injuries despite being injured herself. Thinking back to the attack, she becomes certain that the group had tried to injure her on purpose. Back in the dorm, Minami calls another meeting. He tells the residents that they can still win since there are still 2 days left in the festival. The second day will focus on attractions, so he encourages everyone to do their best to win the public's votes. The intensity in his eyes makes the Dorm 2 students feel slightly intimidated. Minami laughs warmly and tells them simply to do their best. When Mizuki and Izumi return to their room, Izumi tries to remove the bandage on his cheek. Mizuki becomes worried and moves closer to inspect it, relieved when she sees that it isn't swelling. Izumi is stunned by how close she suddenly is. For a split second, he considers pulling her even closer, but he stops himself and gently pushes her face away instead. Trying to change the subject, he brings up that he suspects she was knocked down deliberately and asks Mizuki if someone might be targeting her. At first, Mizuki is confused, but then she remembers the unsettling smiles Itsuki has been giving her. She decides not to mention it to Izumi. Instead, she takes a shower to avoid further questions. Izumi is left with the familiar feeling that she is hiding something. The next day, the second years of Dorm 2 are doing a costume cafe with all female characters. Mizuki and Senri look so adorable that several boys from their dorm comment on how wasted their looks are since they are actually guys. Both of them feel offended by the remarks, especially Senri, who insists he would prefer normal compliments. Kyogo and Shinji soon appear from backstage, also dressed in female outfits. Shuichi comes trudging in, clearly uncomfortable with the fit of his dress. As Shinji fusses over adjusting his dress, Shuichi suddenly stops complaining when he notices Mizuki. The moment lasts only seconds before Shuichi gets a nosebleed. Shinji and Kyogo quickly drag him away before he ruins the dress. Mizuki then asks where Izumi is, and they tell her he is still in the changing area. She peeks backstage and is stunned by the sight of her dormmates struggling to squeeze into their costumes. Then she finally sees Izumi. Unlike the others, Mizuki finds him breathtaking. When he walks over to her after his makeup is finished, Mizuki asks what character he is supposed to be. Izumi replies that he is dressed as Yang Weifei, then points out that Mizuki has been staring at him. Suddenly, a loud announcement echoes through the school declaring that the second day of the festival has officially begun. Customers soon begin filtering into their classroom cafe. Mizuki, Senri, and Izumi quickly become the biggest attractions among the students. While the three of them charm customers with their beauty, the rest of the dorm members enjoy interacting with visitors in their own ways. Another announcement soon follows, reminding everyone that the beauty pageant will take place the next day and that students should cast their votes today. When everyone looks at the board displaying the contestants, they realize the competition this year is on another level. Before long, rumors about Mizuki spread throughout the school. Back at the cafe, students from the executive committee approach Mizuki and Senri for an interview for the pageant. The interviewer shamelessly asks them what their sizes are. Senri answers without any trouble, but Mizuki becomes too nervous and suddenly bolts out of the cafe. As she runs off, she fails to notice several students from Dorm 1 watching. They wonder why she doesn't seem very injured. One of them shrugs and says it doesn't matter as long as Mizuki doesn't get to compete in the final relay. Meanwhile, Mizuki stops in the courtyard, already regretting that she agreed to join the beauty pageant. She suddenly spots Minami talking with Kanako, the girl she saw with him the day before, near some bushes. Not wanting to intrude, Mizuki decides to quietly slip away. However, she notices Hakuto sitting nearby. She approaches him, and Hakuto casually compliments her outfit before mentioning that he was taking a break. Mizuki immediately scolds him for drinking alcohol, but she stops when she hears Minami's voice nearby. Without warning, Hakuto guides her behind the bushes so they can see what's happening without being noticed. As they listen, Hakuto quietly explains that Kanako used to be Minami's tutor, and the two of them once dated. After their breakup, Minami developed his reputation as a player. Turning their attention to the conversation, it seems Minami is upset because Kanako is leaving. Suddenly, he pulls Kanako into a kiss. For a brief moment, it looks like she accepts it, until she slaps him. Understanding what her reaction means, Minami finally lets her go. At that moment, Mizuki accidentally sneezes. Minami immediately demands to know who is there. Mizuki realizes she is in trouble and turns to look for Hakuto, only to find that he has already slipped away. Before she can be discovered, Minami's attention shifts back to Kanako as she gives him a final farewell and walks away. Minami approaches the bush where Mizuki is hiding and she slowly reveals herself. The two of them eventually sit down to talk. Minami explains that Kanako was the first girl he ever truly fell in love with, and he believes she was all he would ever need. But one day she suddenly disappeared from his life without explanation. He thought he had moved on, but when she showed up again yesterday, all his feelings came rushing back. Minami then reveals that Kanako is about to get married. Because of that, he has been struggling with conflicting emotions. Minami asks Mizuki for a favor when Izumi happens to walk by and spots them together. Seeing the two of them alone makes his chest tighten, so he quietly moves closer. Minami suddenly asks Mizuki if he could have a hug. When Mizuki agrees, Minami dives right in, and Izumi witnesses the entire moment. After a brief second, Minami pulls away and smiles, saying he was only teasing her. He explains that she looked so adorable that he simply couldn't resist hugging her. Mizuki pretends to be irritated for a moment, but deep down she feels relieved. Then out of nowhere, Minami asks if she is in love with someone. Mizuki instantly blushes, causing Minami to laugh kindly at how honest her reaction is. He gently advises her to cherish the love she currently has because each love feels completely different. That is why she should nurture the love she is now and let it bloom. The school intercom suddenly blares with Senri's voice, begging Mizuki to come back to the cafe so he can finally take a break. Taking the hint, Mizuki quickly hurries off. Minaoni follows soon after, and Izumi watches them both leave. He feels confused about why he was spying on them. When Mizuki returns to the cafe, Senri immediately scolds her for leaving. As she apologizes, Mizuki notices Izumi standing behind her, no longer in costume. Without saying a single word, Izumi walks past her. His cold behavior distracts Mizuki for a moment, but Senri quickly snaps at her to get back to work. She moves to serve a nearby table. The customers are asked if she has seen a particular server and show her a photo. To Mizuki's surprise, it is a picture of Minaami wearing a wig and a dress. Apparently, most people do not recognize him in the photo, so Mizuki reveals that it is actually Minaami. Suddenly, everyone crowds around the table to take a closer look. Just then, Minaami appears and swiftly crumples it in his hand. He remarks that it is surprising to see that photo circulating. It turns out the person responsible for distributing the photos is Wataru. He has always been annoyed by Minaami, so he thought circulating photos of him was a good way of getting revenge. Minaami quickly catches up to Wataru. Though Wataru tries to argue that he has the right to sell these photos, Minaami refuses to let him off so easily. Draping an arm around Wataru's shoulders, he casually announces that Wataru will be joining the beauty pageant. With only 2 hours left of the second day, the current tally shows that Dorm 2 is in last place. The news crushes the dorm's spirits. They had expected it to be difficult to beat Dorm 3 that day. Minaami enters the room and informs them that the third years of Dorm 3 earned the highest score thanks to their haunted house attraction. The boys believe it immediately, since Maso is known for his impressive makeup skills. Minaami curses under his breath, realizing his own ideas hadn't worked against Maso's. His attention then shifts to Izumi and he asks why Izumi isn't wearing his costume anymore. Izumi responds coldly, which makes Minaami confused. He jokingly calls Izumi uncute before walking over and casually snuggling up to Mizuki. However, it's Shuichi who immediately gets worked up and tries to get Minaami off. Izumi walks out of the room without giving them another glance, which worries Mizuki. Outside, Izumi heads out to throw away some trash. Mizuki runs after him to help, but he brushes her off and keeps walking, leaving Mizuki feeling hurt. She ends up standing outside Hakuto's office. Once she settles in, Mizuki explains what happened. Hakuto comments that boys can actually be quite delicate creatures. After giving her that bit of advice, he asks what happened with Minaami. Mizuki explains everything that occurred earlier. Hakuto seems pleased with the news. She'd also repeat something Minaami advised her about and his own plans about moving forward. Hakuto finds the sentiment amusing and then asks how things are going between her and Izumi, and whether they are using protection. Mizuki turns bright red and quickly insists that Izumi doesn't even know she is a girl. However, she does admit that Izumi once told her she is an important friend to him. Hakuto studies her expression and calmly tells her that someday being just friends will no longer be enough. Soon after, Mizuki leaves the infirmary, loudly insisting to herself that they are only friends. Izumi happens to overhear her and finds her behavior strange before awkwardly apologizing for shouting at her earlier. He explains that he was in a bad mood and accidentally took it out on her. He suggests they head back together and starts walking ahead. Still feeling happy after their reconciliation, Mizuki doesn't notice a vase falling from above until it crashes to the ground behind her. Izumi and several students are shocked at the near accident. Mizuki herself is too frightened to even look up. Not long after, the second day of the festival finally comes to an end. As Mizuki prepares to leave the school, she notices Megumi and his group also heading out. She is surprised when Megumi approaches her, asks about her injury, and apologizes. Megumi explains that while injuries can happen during competitions, he will not tolerate it if someone deliberately tries to harm her, and the person responsible came from his own dorm. He tells her that the chicken fight is a draw and that they can settle their score during the relay. Mizuki confidently promises that she will not lose, which amuses Megumi. As Megumi walks away, Itsuki lingers behind. He tells Mizuki that he heard about the earlier incident and warns her to watch herself. After he leaves, Mizuki begins to suspect that he might be behind everything. One evening, Mizuki dreams that it was Itsuki who pushed the vase. She wakes up in a cold sweat and heads to the bathroom to calm herself down. However, the noise ends up waking Izumi. When Mizuki returns to the bedroom, Izumi sits up and asks what's wrong. Mizuki admits that she had a bad dream. Hearing this, Izumi offers to let her sleep in his bed. Before she can even respond, Izumi reaches out and pulls her onto his bed so they can go back to sleep. Mizuki becomes extremely nervous, but Izumi appears oddly calm about the whole situation. He even tells her that as long as she sleeps beside him, she won't have any bad dreams. Mizuki tries to think of an excuse to refuse, but she notices that Izumi has already fallen asleep. She figures that Izumi was half asleep the entire time. After debating with herself, Mizuki decides to give in. She shifts closer to Izumi so she can hear the steady rhythm of his heartbeat, which lulls her to sleep. The next morning, Shuichi bursts into their dorm. The moment he sees Mizuki and Izumi sharing the same bed, he freezes in shock. Mizuki explains that she had a bad dream and ended up sleeping in Izumi's bed. She hurriedly promises to finish getting ready as Izumi slowly wakes up, confused about how Mizuki got into his bed. Once he reaches outside, Shuichi keeps repeating to himself that two guys sharing a bed isn't strange at all. However, Taiki immediately notices the jealous aura radiating from him. Today is the final day of the cultural festival, and the school opens its gates to the public. Mizuki is amazed by the large crowd pouring into the campus. She and Shuichi also notice that Taiki is holding an old camera. Without explaining anything, Taiki suddenly snaps a photo of Mizuki and Shuichi. He then shows them the picture while it slowly develops. As the image becomes clearer, Mizuki and Shuichi are stunned to see faint, ghostly figures surrounding them, causing Shuichi to faint. Mizuki returns to helping at the cafe. Some visiting girls notice her and start calling her adorable, assuming she is simply a boy dressed up as a girl. While delivering drinks to some of the upperclassmen from Dorm 2, Mizuki is surprised to see a long line forming outside their classroom. The third-year students of Dorm 2 have organized an interactive mystery play with Minami playing the role of the head detective. With his natural charisma, he easily captivates the female audience, encouraging them to participate in solving the mystery. As the girls swoon over him, Mizuki suddenly spots Senri in the crowd admiring Minami. She quickly grabs him and drags him away to work. On their way back to their classroom, Mizuki notices Izumi now dressed in a server costume, surrounded by a group of girls asking to take photos with him. For some reason, the sight irritates her. Without thinking, she stomps over to the group and grabs Izumi by the arm, dragging him away from them. Izumi thanks her for the rescue, but Mizuki doesn't respond. However, it doesn't take long before a crowd of girls gathers around her instead, charmed by how adorable she looks as Alice. From the break room, Kyogo and Shuichi watch the chaos unfold. Neither of them seems particularly impressed by the number of girls interested in Mizuki. Mizuki tries to find a way to escape the crowd, but suddenly a familiar voice calls out from behind her. The classroom door opens and Maso appears dressed as a vampire. Without hesitation, he wraps an arm around Mizuki. The girls immediately erupt in excitement at the dramatic sight. With the girls focused now on Maso, he smoothly invites them all to visit Dorm 3's haunted house and begins leading them away. Once the crowd disappears, Shuichi exits the classroom, furious that Maso stole their customers and touched Mizuki so casually. An announcement calls for all the beauty pageant contestants to gather. Senri quickly grabs Mizuki and pulls her along so they can prepare. While searching for Maso, Shuichi suddenly overhears Shotaro speaking with another member of the karate club. From what little he can hear, it sounds like Dorm 1 may be directly involved in the incidents surrounding Mizuki. As he tries to listen more closely, Shuichi suddenly feels a finger trace along his leg. Startled, he lets out a noise. The two karate club members quickly leave the area while Itsuki casually claims he was only complimenting Shuichi. Shuichi angrily tries to call him out, but the Dorm 1 members have already disappeared. Still, Shuichi refuses to let the matter go. He swears to himself that he won't allow anyone to harm Mizuki and storms off. He runs straight to Izumi in the cafe and urgently tells him that Mizuki is in danger. Meanwhile, a large stage has been set up for the beauty pageant. A lively crowd cheers as the contestants are introduced. Among them stands Mizuki, struggling to keep a polite smile on her face. Next, the hosts introduce the top 4 contestants with the most votes. They are Shotaro, the only freshman among the finalists who has quickly gained popularity, Senri, last year's winner, Mizuki, whose popularity surged due to her being a transfer student from abroad, and the surprise last-minute entry, Wataru, who stubbornly refuses to have his name announced. After the introductions, they are then asked to perform their talents. By this time, Shuichi has already filled Izumi in on everything that happened earlier. Feeling uneasy, Izumi decides to head to the pageant grounds because he suspects that Dorm 1 might try to harm Mizuki during the event. After leaving the stage, Shotaro receives a message telling him to proceed with the plan. Meanwhile, Senri happily basks in the attention, while Mizuki quietly wishes for everything to be over. Suddenly, Shotaro approaches her and politely asks if they could talk for a moment. Mizuki finds the request a little strange, but eventually agrees. They walk toward a quieter part of the school. Trying to make conversation, Mizuki asks Shotaro why he joined the karate club since he doesn't really look like the type to fight. She quickly apologizes, worried that her comment sounded rude. Shotaro tells her he's used to hearing that, and that people in his neighborhood often mistake him for a girl. He explains that he is the frailest among his siblings. However, after watching Itsuki perform a Kumate, he became inspired to do karate. Hearing that, Mizuki feels a sense of familiarity. She's about to tell him that she understands, but before she can finish, several members of the karate club surround her. They tell Shotaro that his job is done and that he should return to the pageant. Shotaro looks filled with regret, but he still runs toward the stage without looking back. Senri happens to be searching for Mizuki and spots her struggling against the karate club members. Shocked, he rushes forward and tries to pull them away from her. One of the members punches Senri directly in the face, causing him to stagger backward. Senri snaps and begins attacking the club members aggressively. Meanwhile, back at the stage, the 12 contestants are called to return. Shuichi and Izumi arrive at the venue, anxiously looking for Mizuki. Senri runs toward them and quickly explains what happened. However, he doesn't know where they had taken Mizuki. At that moment, Izumi notices Itsuki calmly watching from nearby. Without hesitation, Izumi marches over to him and demands to know where Mizuki is. Shotaro notices the commotion from the stage and immediately runs toward them, insisting that Itsuki has nothing to do with what is happening. However, Itsuki seems to have a suspicion and calmly tells Shotaro to explain everything. Elsewhere, Mizuki is pushed into a storage room where Takashi finally reveals himself as the one behind all the incidents. He explains that he needs to ensure Dorm 1 wins the festival at all costs. To guarantee that victory, he cannot allow Mizuki to compete in the 2,000-meter relay. Mizuki angrily demands to know if Megumi is aware of this plan. Takashi admits that Megumi knows nothing about it. After saying this, he leaves Mizuki locked inside while several of his members remain to guard her. Meanwhile, Izumi and the others are already rushing toward the storage room. Izumi is frantic with worry and can't help wondering why Mizuki won't simply stay by his side so he can keep her safe. Inside the room, Mizuki refuses to sit quietly. She loudly bangs against the door and even tries to fight back against them. Eventually, the boys lose their patience and prepare to hurt her. Shuichi suddenly kicks the door open and immediately attacks the boy. The attacker runs away and Shuichi chases after him. Izumi arrives and knocks another member out, shocking Mizuki that he is also here to rescue her. He steps closer and grabs her wrist, resting his forehead against her shoulder. He tells her to remain still for a moment. Relief floods through him, and he finally accepts the truth that he likes Mizuki and wants to keep her close. Back at the pageant grounds, Wataru is declared the winner since the other 3 finalists and mysteriously disappeared. Though he stands on stage with the crown, he quietly fumes, cursing Minami. Megumi watches the announcement and asks Takashi why Shotaro isn't on stage. Before Takashi can answer, Shotaro and Itsuki arrive along with the beaten members of the karate club who had taken Mizuki. The boys immediately apologize to Minami for kidnapping Mizuki and causing trouble. Minami sighs relieved no one was seriously harmed. Megumi then accepts the blame as both the leader of Dorn 1 and the head of the karate club. Minami turns to Mizuki and asks what should be done with them. After a moment, Mizuki decides to forgive them since they apologize sincerely. Megumi nearly bursts into tears with relief at the decision. Itsuki, however, sternly tells Takashi and the others that they will still have to make up for their actions. Mizuki then apologizes for assuming Itsuki had been behind everything. This causes Megumi to laugh. He explains that Itsuki tends to grin at people he believes have potential because he is always looking for promising recruits. At that moment, Shuichi suddenly realizes that this must also be why Itsuki had touched his legs earlier. An announcement soon echoes across the grounds, calling for the start of the final relay race. Minami immediately tells Shuichi and Mizuki to prepare. However, as they begin to move, Shuichi suddenly collapses to one knee in pain. He realizes that he sprained his leg earlier when he delivered a flying kick to the boy who tried to hurt Mizuki. Minami quickly considers their options. Even though Dorm 2 is still far behind in points, the relay is their last chance to win everything. At the track, Minami steps forward to stand beside Mizuki. He decides to take Shuichi's place in the race, partly for the dorm and partly for himself. Before the race begins, he proudly tells Mizuki that once it is over, he will finally move forward and let go of his feelings. He even promises that he will send flowers to Kanako on her wedding day. They run toward their starting positions, and Mizuki glances toward Izumi. She notices him watching her closely. Embarrassed, she quickly looks away and focuses on the race. The relay begins with Dorn 1 taking an early lead. When the baton reaches Minami, he runs with surprising speed, overtaking several runners. By the time he reaches Mizuki, he manages to close the distance significantly. The moment Izuki receives the baton, she sprints forward and overtakes the Dorm 1 runner who had been leading. Her incredible win earns Dorm 2 enough points to claim overall victory in the festival. During the celebrations, Mizuki's class is also awarded the MVP title for the entire school festival. Later, Mizuki walks home with Izumi. She notices that he has been unusually quiet the whole time. When she asks about it, Izumi softly admits that he had only been looking at her earlier during the race. Unfortunately, the wind is too loud and Mizuki cannot hear what he says. Izumi simply smiles and refuses to repeat himself, even as Mizuki keeps begging him to say it again. Thanks for watching. This marks the end of the season. Don't forget to subscribe if you enjoyed it.